Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, te turu whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e, from above, from below, from within, from everything around us, let us join together with clarity and understanding for this hui. Let it be bound and let it be said today, here and now. Tēnā koutou.
That Deputy Chair, can I add my very warm welcome to you in your new position of what I think is the most exciting Committee of Council. So thank you, and thank you for the karakia. As Councillor Maria has said, it's gone 9:30. We've got a very full agenda, and I'm also mindful we've got an appointment at the theatre later in the afternoon, so we do have a number of fixed times we're going to have to try to achieve. So brevity and efficiency will be the call of the day. I see the Deputy Mayor has already made the prediction we'll be finished by midday. Of course, she, having now said that, is responsible for whether or not that occurs. So I will quickly move the apologies. I have a full absence from Mayor Southgate, Kesh and Councillor Muku. Are there any others? No, I'll move. Oh, sorry. Councillor Taylor.
Chair, at 3:30, I'm going to have to pop out for some time if we're still going at that stage. So,
absolutely, thank
really
you.
Hope we're not.
Okay, so we're going to have a hard stop by 4 o'clock, aren't we, for the 4:30? Hard stop 3:30. 3:30, okay. All right, so with the addition of Councillor Jeff's indication of early departure, I'll move, seconded by my deputy, Councillor Maria. So thank you. Confirmation of the agenda is as per the run sheet. I think I did vote, but let's try that again. So for the apologies, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent. Confirmation of the agenda. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Jeff. All those in favour say aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The motion was carried unanimously.
Declaration of interest. Are there any? No? Not required to be put. Public forum. Is there any? So, I'll move the confirmation of the Economic Development Committee open minutes of the 3rd of December, seconded by Councillor McIndoe. Any corrections? None being indicated. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. Chair's report. I'll move. I just want to add again my warm welcome to Councillor Maria. We've got a very busy balance of this triennium, including our upcoming trip to China. But other than that, I think the report is self-explanatory. Any questions? No questions. I will move my report, seconded by Councillor Sarah. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent. So we've now got to item 7, the external agencies and CCO reporting. There's a lot to get through, so we're going to go through each of these segments, and then we'll do the debate at the end of it. Obviously, after each of the segments, we'll take questions. So I have the Waikato Regional Airport Limited. Scott, Mark, and Nicola, of course, very... Yeah.
Good morning, Chair. And as indicated, given the interest in Jetstar, we're combining the HWT and the RAL presentations this morning.
Wonderful.
I'm just checking if Barry Harris, our chair, is joining via Teams. I'm not sure if he's online. Doesn't look like he is just yet. Okay, I think Lauren has as well. But look, why don't I get, I'll get underway if you'd like me to, Chair.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so look, good morning, Council. Thanks for the opportunity yet again to present to you. I think the guidance we received was to give you just a very, very high level in terms of the presentation snapshot of the respective businesses and to spend more time on the Jetstar preparation. So that's the approach we have taken. And we'll start really with, have I got a slide, or are we just asking for the slide move? Thank you. So I think this is just a key summary slide for the RAL Group in the sense of, and we use the word transition, sort of a pivotal time, and I think those of you that have been on the journey with the airport company for a number of years would, I think what we're now moving into is a time of, we've done a lot of preparation, a lot of strategy groundwork to get to this point, and this year I guess it's more ironically about implementation both in the aviation space where of course we'll talk about Jetstar, but there's also a lot happening in the general aviation sector with us. So we're just in the middle of expanding facilities for a major aeromedical tenant, and that'll be completed by the middle of the year, along with other work that we're doing in the general aviation space, private jet discussions that are now have reached a point where we'll be building infrastructure next year. So that's all going extremely well. And of course on Precinct North, our property strategy, we have started earthworks on opening up the first 10 hectares of land in preparation also for our first design build that will be commenced in the middle of the year. So a lot of activity in and around the airport. In respect of that, the board have elected that we should bring forward our, you may recall we have a 10-year group strategy and that we're sort of into, I guess, about year 7 of that 10-year strategy, and we think now is an appropriate time to actually consider the group strategy for the next decade, if you like. So we have engaged an aviation consultant to help with the aviation strategy and the property strategy. Most of that, there'll be some consultant support for that as well as in-house resource. That strategic review will be completed this calendar year, and our intention at the moment is to brief the shareholders at the November AGM just on how we think that the next decade will look. And then I just would take the opportunity, obviously I don't normally speak about Hamilton Waikato tourism, but I think in respect of the RTO, what I would say is firstly thank you to this council for your ongoing support for funding. I would say that ironically we're somewhat challenged for the RTO and its funding space, and Nicola will go into that in a bit more detail. But with the positive irony of Jetstar coming into the region, the secure funding and the ability for the RTO to compete with other regions across New Zealand will become critically important as we look to move forward. And then finally, the hotel has achieved a 4.5-star rating. It's going very well. Yes, it's subject to some pressure under the general economic climate, tourism climate, but overall we're satisfied with the performance of the hotel, and we will actually also bolt on at some stage later this year a review of the hotel because it's under a 10-year management contract. We're in sort of year 6, 7 of that contract as well, so we need to start to look out and consider whether that structure is appropriate for the next decade or there might be some other options to consider. And as you well know, there are a number of hotels either under construction or proposed development both within Hamilton City and the wider region, so we need to take that into account.
Chairman actually in the waiting room on Zoom, ready to join. Ah, okay, cool, perfect.
Welcome, Barry. Barry, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
I can now. Morning
Okay.
and welcome.
Thank you. So apologies, Chair, that I'm not there in person. I was really keen to do so, but I'm actually in a NIWA board meeting in Auckland, which I've pulled out of for half an hour because I think it's important that that I'm here and able to answer any questions you might have. So I'm just shifting my brain, Chair, from Crown Research Institute mergers back into airport issues. So happy to leave it to the team to take you through the presentation, but keen to address any issues that you might want to raise with me before I head back into my other meeting in about half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott, I think. Yep, happy for you.
So up on screen you'll have a good mixture of, call it past, present and future, just some financial highlights of where we are and where we're going. The first one I'd draw your attention to is just the debt level. That obviously is going to increase, and we talked about that pivotal time with Precinct North as we transition from that previous sort of model in our property strategy, which had been selling land and reinvesting that land into both aeronautical and other non-aeronautical assets. We're now at a point where we can hold the land and develop property, so commercial properties that sit on top of the land for long-term hold and long-term income. And that from now to up to the 70 million of total debt is largely driven by the non-aeronautical portfolio, and that will also contribute to around 4 million of new revenues that will come online in 2027. At the same time as the Jetstar services are up and running, we'll start to see, of course, the benefit of passengers coming through the airport via landing charges, via car parking and retail around the airport as well. So I think, yeah, the debt level will continue to sit a little bit higher than you will have seen it done, but equally we're supercharging what I call the property strategy and looking to generate returns similar to probably the land sale activity we've had, but by continuing to hold that land and those assets long term so that income is sustainable year on year.
Thanks, Scott. On to the next slide, please. Again, just a very brief update on the runway designation. I think Council's fully aware that we currently have a designation that has a lapse in the end of 2026, and we are undertaking a review of the designation and the criteria that sits around the designation. There's been quite a bit of activity by our planners, by our RMA lawyers, and we have been engaged with those local landowners that have a approach lighting designation on their land. So we're moving along that process as we committed to do, with an intention to have a view to bring back to our board later in 2025. We're also working closely with Waipa Council, who are, of course, instrumental in seeking to extend the lapse period. And that will be the ideal outcome if we're able to have all parties agree that there's merits in extending the lapse period. We're also in conversations with the government as well around their view of the criticality of the designation, and those conversations have been helpful as well. So it's moving along as we expect it to do so. We can now move, I think, on to Nicola.
So just before we transition into the tourism-related aspects, would you like to cover it all, Mark? The statement of intent, obviously as part of our resolution stemming from this meeting today, Council is being asked to endorse the statement of intent. I just wonder if you wanted to highlight any salient points to your shareholder about the statement of intent.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. Sorry, I am on the sun shining on my light.
Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it?
Look, what I would say is I think the statement of intent reflects certainly the letter of expectation received from this council, and that's really, I suppose, starting to provide a greater focus on aviation aeronautical activity into the future. That's obviously commencing with the arrival of Jetstar in the middle of this year. But in addition to that, we believe that provides us with a much more, with a stronger platform on which, and perhaps a stronger credibility on which to enter into negotiations down the track with other opportunities. So I think that key reflection of the role of the airport and growing its both its ideally its domestic services and its international services, I think I would suggest is the key change and key flavour of the statement of intent. Scott, is there anything else you would add to that?
No, I think that we have traditionally acknowledged that we were here under a previous strategic plan to connect the Māori Waikato to New Zealand, and I think rather headline comment this year in the core purposes is connecting Māori Waikato to New Zealand and beyond, so recognising we do have a beachhead international service, and I think we're all going to benefit if we can grow that.
Okay, thank you. I'm just mindful that we may only have Barry for a limited
Certainly.
period of time. So I wonder, I'll be guided by the airport if you prefer me to open questions now on the airport-related businesses as opposed to the wonderful work Tourism Hamilton Waikato's doing. Mark?
I think that's helpful whilst
Yes.
our chair is available.
Yeah, okay, excellent. All right, so colleagues, having heard Scott and Mark and with Barry, the chair, available, do we have any questions? I have seat 10. Who is seat 10? Is it Tim? Oh, okay.
Hopefully I'm not asking a question of myself.
Excellent. I think Councillor McIndoe may have been geographically misplaced temporarily. Sorry, so did you actually have a question, Councillor? Oh, excellent. Okay. No problem. So, all right, well, I have a couple of questions if I could. Mark, I read with interest a comment you made in the Waikato Times where you've said we've been completely upfront with the shareholders about the costs and the expected benefits and have had no concern raised by any shareholder in regards to the international terminal spend. I wonder if you could help me point to any formal or any written sharing of advice as to quantum, not benefit, that you sent either Sean Murray as our representative or the committee. Because when I was asked yesterday, I had no idea about the cost of the, and maybe I wasn't required to know. So I want to explore that as well. So can you help me what you meant when you gave that quote?
I certainly can, Chair. So firstly, and Barry may also want to comment, but firstly, if we go back, we kept the shareholders fully informed, which is principally, of course, the shareholder representatives, the mayors and the CEs, during the commercial negotiations with Jetstar last year, and both, to your point, the benefits and the costs and the potential costs associated with reintroducing international to Hamilton. And then if I fast forward to the November AGM where all of our shareholders were present, including yourself, we did articulate in one of our slides the actual what we anticipated to be the costs of reintroducing international services, and that number was a number that sat within the range that's been published in the newspaper this morning.
So could you remind me what that number was?
That number was 6 million.
Okay.
But there was a context around that 6 million, Chair, that, of course, at that stage, we still had yet to commence both the construction of the fit-out of the terminal, and we have yet to finalise our commercial agreement with the border agency. So it was an indicative, but that's why we've provided a range, and that's a range that the shareholders were comfortable with, and a range that we still stand by.
Right, okay, thank you. Question, if I could, to Sean Murray. Sean, when we spoke yesterday, I asked if you knew of what the price of the International was. And you were still trying to find the email, but the email that I got sent was one that was just sent a couple of days ago. So did you recall the estimated price of the International improvements, and if so, was it the $6 million figure?
Yes, I recall that from the AGM. I also have a feeling that I might recall that it was quoted in one of these committee meetings when there's been further conversation about the extension of Jetstar services, but nothing in writing that I can recall.
Right, and of course now that it's 7 million, so what is your understanding as our representative? Because what I've heard here today is that the normal line of business is that the airport, fulfilling its obligation to communicate with the shareholder, isn't necessarily in this formal environment. It's a conversation with yourself and or at an AGM.
Yeah, or its report to this committee, which happens every half year.
Right. So interesting, I do see the 7 million today in this report. But I must confess the figure of 7 million mentioned any earlier, I never had.
Perhaps I could, Chair, if I could just make a quick comment. I understand where you're coming from. Without having the detail in front of me, I know that on regular occasion from early stages that we were discussing with the mayors and the chief executive and the shareholder representative the broad terms of the financials associated with this, and noting at the time that there was a level of uncertainty to be worked through, and we're only just recently getting final clarity around the cost of the border agencies and a range of other things. So there was never a absolute figure. There was a range that the board was comfortable proceeding, that the business case stacked up on within that range, and that remains the case here, acknowledging that there was a significant upfront capital cost, and that there would take some time to get the cash flow coming from the International Airway operation in order to sustain that. And we've conveyed that very clearly to the shareholders, and that was where the support for proceeding with what was a pretty skinny business case, but acknowledging the wider regional community and economic benefit that was associated with it. So, short version, Chair, the costings that you're talking about, the board is well aware of, and it's well within our understanding as to the business case that we were agreeing to. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, I just want to follow up on the discussion that whether or not you feel that these sorts of details, on the basis that it's a CCO relationship, whether or not these are necessarily needed to be shared with council, because yesterday you said not necessarily. It's only when they are of significant financial magnitude, and this wouldn't count as one. The purpose of my question is I want to understand how that is communicated. And the second point is, in a broader sense, we're also going towards a water CCO. And these sorts of areas of uncertainty about the relationship and how things are communicated. So you'll recall our conversation yesterday, and you said, no, this would not necessarily have had to come to us. Is that still your understanding?
My comment yesterday related to the quantum of the financials involved, because under the Constitution, the requirement to come to the shareholders with any significant financial transactions, the threshold is quite a bit higher than this particular one, and I think it's 10% of the balance sheet, if I recall correctly. On the matter of the actual issue itself and the opportunity for international air services, everything that is involved, that is of high interest, and it is in the company's interest to keep the shareholders informed, and that's exactly what they've done all the way through.
Right. Okay, I'll leave my comments to the debate. Mark, I also note today you're quoted in the Waikato Times as saying, preparing the terminal for international flights makes us a much more attractive proposition for other potential airlines in the future. Help me understand, when you were spending the $15 million in 2023 for the redevelopment of the balance of the terminal, would there not have been economies of scale to have taken that opportunity then to fit out the northern element of the terminal for international and potentially jet services domestically with security scenarios? And so I'm just interested in your thinking why you didn't take the opportunity and glean those efficiencies, if any.
Sure. And I think
Chair, if I could just answer very quickly, because that was a board decision, and Mark can put some substance around that. But at the time, and when we were doing that work, predominantly around structural integrity issues, and we couldn't justify the additional expenditure associated with the international based on foreseeable use of it. So the board made the decision not to proceed with it, other than to future-proof the international side of it for any future use. To your question, would there have been opportunities for lower costs if we'd done it all together? Most likely, but we dealt with what we knew at the time.
All right. So
Mark, do you have a comment?
I do, if I may, Chair. Carrying on from Barry's comments, what I would say is that we obviously took the opportunity to strengthen the entire building, including the international end of the terminal, which is by far and away the most expensive component of the build. And I think the other the important context is that we made this decision during COVID in 2020. We delayed in 2020, then we carried on the following year, and we made, or the board made the decision to invest at a time where there was huge uncertainty about international air travel, huge uncertainty about economic conditions, not only for the aviation industry, but for the economy and for the world. So I think we made a very brave decision to carry on, and in fact managed to build the domestic end of the terminal slightly under budget at a time of escalating costs. And I'd say now that the cost, we're doing a number of works in other parts of the airport, and the economic environment at the moment in relation to the construction industry means that costs are very, very competitive at the moment. So I think that we've been able to execute the northern end at a cost that would have been similar had we done the whole terminal together, just because of the procurement environment we're in.
Will you acknowledge, however, post-COVID globally, it's recognised that airlines internationally have seen huge uptake and demands that have astonished the industry sector?
Absolutely, Chair, and had I had that vision in 2021, we may well have had a different view. But I'd have to say that there was no business case at that point. There was no interest from airlines to transit into Hamilton. So I think we made the right decision and the right recommendation to our board based on the information we had at the time.
So I've got one further question, and I see Councillor Pike. The future, in your quote saying we're a much more attractive proposition in light of the current investment. I guess an observation would be that was the intent of the shareholder requiring you to pursue international at all opportunities. But you're feeling now in confidence of additional international players being interested? 1, 2, what efforts and resources are you now allocating to cultivate that opportunity?
Firstly, what I would say, Chair, is that our immediate focus, when I say immediate, really, certainly this calendar year and into next year, is to make sure that the 2 new routes are successful, well supported, and that's really the focus of our organisation, and we'll talk a wee bit about that in the Jetstar presentation. So I think first and foremost, that needs to happen. We need to have that credible beachhead, if you like. I think the other key aspect about being prepared is the fact that we now have all of the agencies. So we're dealing with 7 agencies in order to provide border services. That's a massive piece of work, and the fact that we will have the border established post-June removes, if you like, an impediment to expansion that we would have otherwise have had. We will obviously try and engage, and will engage with airports and with airlines, as we know, and perhaps you know better than most that the airlines will decide themselves on the credibility and the financial strength of a new route. Us as an airport company, our role is to work with other airport companies to work up business cases that support an expansion and support then talking to the airlines, and we'll certainly be engaging in those conversations. So no question that is our focus, but I would beg some time that we establish what we've got first and secure those routes.
Cool. Councillor Pike.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you all for coming today and your time. I was just looking at the roadmap and the debt increase from 30 million in 2025 to 70 million in 26, and just wanting to check how you intend to fund this debt. Will it be loans, or will it be leveraging or selling off assets, or is there any intention to come to shareholders to assist in that?
No intent to come to shareholders at all. Obviously, our mandate for some time has been self-funding, so we continue to do that. So the uptake in debt is purely bank funding, so capital we're sourcing ourselves.
Okay, cool. I just couldn't see that in the report, so I wanted clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I think we've now moved on to Nicola.
Button came on automatically. Tēnā koutou katoa. Lovely to see you all. Councillor Maria, congratulations on your appointment. What we've done is split our presentation into a couple of parts, and it's moulded through with the airport company, so we'll go through that. The report is in your agenda. I think it's from page 70 from memory when I looked at the agenda pack. So hopefully that covers a lot of what we're going to cover, and I'll just tick off some of the highlights from that. Firstly, the next slide, please. Councillor Ewan had asked for an overview of our KPIs, our key performance indicators, and our service level agreement that is a collaborative SLA with your neighbouring district councils of Waikato, Waipa and Matamatapāko. So these are the key performance indicators in that. Look, the green one's tracking along nicely, obviously. This is our 6-month report, so we do still have some work to do ahead of us for the year, all on track. The red one there, though, that is Waitomo and Otorohanga withdrawal. So that was one of our key performance indicators, was to try and keep them on board. Unfortunately, that stalled, and they have chosen to withdraw from the RTO. But that means we're still a mighty RTO with our four district councils, city council and 3 district. So the orange, they're all on track. By the end of the 12 months, they will be all met. We move on, please. Thank you. Back a one. Yeah, that one. Thank you. These. So the get lost, the missing. We've taken a slightly different approach, completely different approach actually, to our marketing this year. In the past, we've run a little bit more than 10 small campaigns. This year, we're running 2. So we've gone for what we initially called and termed a Big Bang campaign. With our creatives, it's now turned into Get Lost in the Mighty Waikato. So that went live on the 17th of March, so we're part way through, and indicators are already showing great cut through. the little bit bold, a little bit cheeky, has gained some media attention, which we're really pleased about, exactly what we did it for. So if you haven't seen it, and you likely haven't, because you're not our target market, you're not our visitors, do go onto our website, wakatoNZ.com/getlost, and you'll see all of the videos and the content there. So Hamilton City featured prominently in 2 sets of videos, Get Lost in the Hamilton Gardens, and the next slide please, Get Lost in Hamilton City and the views of our mighty awa. We've also developed through our member portal for our members a whole range of assets that they can utilise in their own marketing activity. So the Get Lost banner and the selfies of Sonia and Mike there, our grandparents who are lost here in the mighty Waikato. They can overlay that with their own images and share that through their own networks so that our members also help with our coverage and our extension of that campaign. I've got more stuff after your next part, Mark. I'll hand back to Mark.
Chair, if I could, I think Barry needs to depart. I think he just wanted to make a couple of closing comments, if that's okay with you.
Hey, Barry.
Thank you, Chair. No further comments other than what's already been provided, Chair. Just if there are any other questions of me or comments to me before I head back to my other meeting.
Any comments I would have, Barry, is we're all looking forward to the international flights. Thanks for the work that you're doing to see that become a reality. And 16th of June, we will have a jet back in our skies, which will be pretty exciting. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Regards to everyone.
Any other questions of Tourism Waikato or the airport? Okay, we'll carry on.
We've saved the best till last year. Look, we now are going to move, if we could move to the next slide, which is obviously the Jetstar short presentation. But look, just before we move into that, I thought it might be helpful, I'll just get Scott to round out, when we're talking about our debt level, it might be worth just rounding out for you what it's being used for and the income we're receiving from it.
So primarily that from today, if you like, the debt's a little bit lower than the year-end number in the slide, so 38 million at year-end, but today it's a little bit less because we've got a few months' worth of capital expenditure. We're going to see around another 45 million of debt added to the business. That is going to generate help generate another 4 million of income, and we look to grow that income over time. So 4 million of income on a $40 million investment, so 10% return, if you like, which is obviously far above the interest rates in that. So we see that as really important. It's cash flow positive investment from day one. It's not investing in assets that we're holding and having to hold to really get a return in the future. So in that sense, it's a pretty low risk. It's a lot of debt to take on for our business, but we see it as low risk given there's a high return early on, and things like rents and that are obviously a lot more assured than speculative investment. I hope that answers. So residual questions? Yep.
Just doing a time check, Chair. How long are we okay for time?
Absolutely.
Okay. Look, we've just got a few slides.
Get through the agenda, so it's important. Yep. Good.
Okay. Look, we've just got a few slides here on, I guess, the preparation for the Jetstar services. But look, this first slide is really just a reminder, essentially, to Council around the fundamental business case, of course, which was the 2 services, one of new jobs associated with Jetstar, and alone at the airport we probably have created about 50 or 60 jobs that have been created with the border agencies, ground handlers and other businesses. So the key point I think for you is that everything is on track. So we're now down to carpets and ceilings and painting, so it's on track. It's looking very, very good, and we're very pleased with the way that's come together. Huge amount of work. That's, I guess, the construction part, but the biggest part, of course, has been preparing us to be internationally security designated for the airport, getting approval from CAA, Aviation Security, Customs, MPI, Immigration, Police, Health. So that work continues, and we start our first sort of auditing process with those agencies early in April, and they roll through April and May with the intention that the terminal is, the airport is fully operationally ready 2 weeks prior to the first flight arrival. There are no, we maintain all of these initiatives as kind of orange, so mainly because it's right until the end of the auditing process before we can, but we've had unbelievable support from the agencies, nothing but helpful guidance around ensuring that we meet the compliance requirements of a Tier 1 international airport. So moving to the next slide. Look, this is just a very, hopefully a very simple slide that just demonstrates obviously the inbound and outbound flow of the scheduled services. Obviously, Nicola will talk shortly from an RTO perspective. The primary interest, of course, is to generate inbound tourism into this region and the Upper North Island. Of course, the airport is interested in generating both inbound and outbound to fill the planes. You can see the number of organisations that are currently linked into this process, so very strong support from Jetstar. I'm hoping you will all have seen a lot of social media activity, a lot of fare sales, and particularly a lot of activity coming out of Queensland, out of the both Queensland airports and also Destination Queensland, and Jetstar in that context that have been well funded by the Queensland State Government, that have also provided significant support into this venture. Same with Sydney, both Sydney Airport. A couple of our team were in Sydney just a couple of weeks ago, meeting with the Sydney Airport team, Tourism New Zealand, Destination New South Wales. Along with, of course, the work that the RTO is doing and the work we're doing on the side of the, we've had a number of operators and visitors from Gold Coast Airport, some of the team regularly into New Zealand, understanding the product offering in the Waikato and generating that interest. Overall, the booking pattern for Australia is still generally about 3 months out, so you would expect, we would expect to have more certainty on how the routes are performing sort of during April and onwards. Obviously, the information is commercially sensitive to Jetstar, but what I would say is that the view at the moment is that the advanced bookings are generally as they would have expected. You generally see a much higher, a disproportionate travel outbound to the Gold Coast than inbound. And what we're seeing, and that's absolutely in the range that Jetstar would expect. And the Sydney-Hamilton route is much more balanced at about sort of 50-50, which is again what we would expect. So look, not underscoring a lot of work to do and to keep doing, but we've got strong engagement by all the key parties. Of course, also supported by the work that the government's doing, and Nicola will talk to that as well. So the next slide is over to Nicola.
Just before you go
yes.
to Nicola, Councillor Sarah, you had a question.
I did, but sorry, it was kind of back where you were talking about the debt and the investment there, and what I heard was a lot of that will be in regard to the property portfolio. Sorry, it's context change, but I was just interested, from what I've heard so far, is this right, that it sounds like you're looking at a more kind of sustainable model where it's less about selling land and more about holding and having income from leases.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think when we entered into this 10-year plan about 7 years ago,
Yeah.
this was always a long-term goal. It's
Right.
really until now that we haven't been able to sustain the levels of debt
Yeah.
without compromising the airport. So we're at that kind of tipping point now where we've got a good critical mass of balance sheet
Yeah.
that we can invest without risking the airport.
Okay, and you see that then with the land holdings that you do have, that in taking that approach, you will be able to have a ongoing long-term sustainable revenue that supports.
Entirely. So I think the key here is that take this first design build. It's a 20-year lease with rights of renewal. It pays for itself and it pays for the development on Precinct North. So I think as Scott mentioned earlier on, the future income generated out of this additional debt is in perpetuity. It's recurring revenue and over the next 20 years or longer, not just we still will sell land, and and that's still the intention on the Precinct North is to a combination of design, build and hold, design, build and sell land.
Yeah.
So, but that will be very much driven by the market. And again, the other key point I would make is that we are still, always have been, a net acquirer of land.
Right.
So we have acquired more land than we have sold.
Right.
And I think sometimes that messaging may get lost.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. So this is now the final part of the joint presentation. And you'll just focus on the salient marketing strategy in relation to the international flight?
Correct.
Great.
My slides here are all about Australia and our activity there.
Excellent.
So these two billboards that you see on the screen now, they were an opportunity that came through the Bishop signage digital billboards that are in the airport, our own airport, but Bishop also have the big, beside the highway, billboards in Brisbane, Sydney and the Gold Coast. So these were billboards on those highways and in some of the airports and in the city. It was a fairly quick turnaround on the opportunity that our team worked with Mark's team to develop. So these are two, just your Hamilton examples. But the numbers, when we got the report of the impressions, are absolutely phenomenal. We thought, that'll have great coverage. Saw the 3 million and thought, fantastic. But that was per week for 6 months. So 77 million impressions of those billboards in Sydney, Brisbane and Gold Coast. So I wanted to just share that as phenomenal numbers that we're gaining some coverage with. Next slide, please. Tourism New Zealand, you will have seen that the immediate attention of love it or hate it, the everyone must go tagline that Tourism New Zealand rolled into Australia. This is the example of the Hamilton coverage that has been captured by Tourism New Zealand. And look, that built on the work that they'd already been doing with building the pipeline for Australians' interest into our country. So it was just an extra piece of work that the government funded for Tourism New Zealand. So Hamilton up there in pride and centre of what Tourism New Zealand have done. Next one, please. I'll keep us moving, Councillor Ewan. These Australian activities are pieces of work, and there's 2 slides on this, that with our funding reductions from the other councils, not from Hamilton, but overall funding reduction, meant that we weren't going to be able to deliver. But with Jetstar coming online, our board have approved the use of some savings that we had generated this year, and also the use of a lot of use of our very small cash reserves to enable this activity. So AIM is an event in Melbourne attracting incentive and conference people. IMM is International Media Marketplace, so that's talking to travel journos. Sunrise TV, I'd submitted this presentation before the cyclone in Gold Coast. That's actually been delayed until this coming Monday, so the 31st. And the RTO IBO Day, regional tourism organisations and inbound tour organisers. That was 58 12-minute appointments in Auckland on those dates there on your screen. Next slide, please. The Explore Show, we were going to be attending that one, so that's the Central North Island together in Auckland with our operators. Trends, we probably weren't going to be able to attend that this year with our smaller budgets, but we are now going to attend to help support the Jetstar flights and talk mostly to Australian buyers there. Know My North is a brand new event for all North Island regional tourism organisations and some of their tour travel trade operators. Brand new, first time we've done it. South Island have always done this, so this is the North Island taking on the South. And we are going to be part of that by using some of our cash reserves. We've got some FMILs coming into region, so that's related to trends and meetings, and some journalists, all again to showcase our connectivity into Hamilton Airport. And the last one, and it's just a picture because I hope to have more news for you by now, our own Louise Upston, now Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, fantastic to have a local, announced the Regional Boost Fund to us 3 weeks ago. It's $3 million contestable fund for regional tourism organisations to apply for. We must apply in collaborations. We cannot apply on our own, and it is all to drive international visitor arrivals up until September. So it is focused on the winter and spring international arrivals. We're part of 2 collaborations.
Sorry, Maxine, it's really hard when you're chatting and people are presenting at the same time. Could you refrain from that? Thank you. Sorry. Carry on.
Thank you. So we've put our name to the national collaboration focusing on North America, but there is also the main collaboration we're part of is the Central North Island plus Auckland and Northland, so top of the North Island, focusing on the Australian market. And we have a line in that project outlined for our Hamilton and Jetstar opportunity that will drive. I had hoped we'd have some results today. We're meant to be getting some news by the end of this week. Thought it might have been by today. We haven't yet got that. As soon as we know, we'll be sharing. So we're certainly doing what we can with the Australian market and supporting this great opportunity, because it absolutely is. But recognising, while you maintained your funding, and we're absolutely grateful for that, we have also, suffered funding reductions from others that have impacted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any final questions? No? Oh, sorry, Sarah, looks like you were...
It was just a question to the chair, actually, that is it something to pursue with, say, the Mayoral Forum, wherever the best place might be, to rediscuss funding for Waikato tourism, given they're doing all this work for the region and some have pulled their support.
It's a very, very good question. I think we can certainly make an action that we suggest to the Mayor that she raises that. I think we would have to, if we wanted to take it any further and get a resolution of council, to try to write to this council and say, we think you made a mistake. Would you rethink it? Blair?
Look, I think in reality you're looking at the 2027 LTP cycle, and it's probably something that the Mayoral Forum should be discussing post-elections as council start to think about their priorities. So I think we can take a note of that, and that would be an appropriate way to because I think there's probably a need for councils in the Waikato to talk about their support for various regional initiatives.
If I could probably just add to that, if that's okay. 2 of the councils, of course, adopted an enhanced annual plan last year, so they're doing their long-term plan this current financial year. So we are pitching for return to our normal level of funding.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Councillor Max.
Thank you, and thanks all of you for the great presentation. Good to be able to download all of that information, not just for us, but for the wider audience that take an interest here. It's too exciting that Jetstar is coming to Hamilton, and I'm really mindful of the first experience for customers and how you might be able to use all of your knowledge and experience to make sure that that is absolutely excellent, including the ability to be able to bring your car, park, and not have to get another mortgage to pay for the parking space. Or that, there is some other opportunities to be able to get to the airport rather than just bring a car. And we know that there's been some options in the past that haven't succeeded. So anyway, leave that with you.
And look, Chair, if I may, look, if I could perhaps just, and we don't need to go through them, there were a few additional slides that covered off the airport's focus in terms of promotions. They're not critical to discuss now, they are there for your reference, but there is a slide, and this, if you'd indulge me, can we move through 2 or 3 slides? Yep. This is the main focus. These are some of the tactical messaging that's been generated in Australia. We pick it up here in New Zealand and repurpose it under our branding and redistribute. So we can just keep moving through to give you just a sense of some of the activity for the Gold Coast. And then if we keep going, there's some activity. Sydney, now that billboard, that electronic billboard is a real billboard. That's the size of it, and we will have lots of Waikato branding on that display, along with many other aspects. And if we move, I think just for the first flights, which picks up on the recent comments, we are making a big deal of the first flight arriving into Hamilton. And that's on Monday the 16th. We have asked Minister Upston, we have asked the Prime Minister, but I think that will be difficult given we have a Cabinet meeting on Mondays, and they've just come back from a recess at that period. But I'm very hopeful at this point that Minister Upston will be part of opening the route, along with the intended the CEO of Jetstar, Steph Tully, and myself, and media on those flights, on that flight in, with a significant event here that all of our shareholders and other relevant dignitaries are being invited to at Jet Park to celebrate the arrival of that flight. Then there's the departure on the Wednesday out to the Gold Coast. More subdued at this end, but there is a significant event on the Gold Coast being attended by state government officials and all the tourism entities, and we will go across for that launch on the Gold Coast on that date as well. So you'll see a lot of media activity around those launch flights. And so the experience for the customers on those first flights, they'll be getting something quite unique. But the issue then, or the opportunity, is to maintain that. And I think you'll see that when you see the terminal, and I'll talk more closely with Sean, but we'll be able to bring, if any of our shareholders want to have a look at the terminal before we launch services, we'll be able to arrange some times to do that.
Wonderful. I've got Councillor
Yeah, that's great.
Sarah.
Just a follow-up on that, actually, in terms of not just day one, but following that, and thank you for your invitation to have a look at the terminal, etc. We all have stood in lines at immigration.
Question, Councillor
And so I'm just wanting to know for Hamiltonians who are taking those flights and our visitors coming in, that experience will be both by way of face-to-face and automated systems as well to accommodate the numbers that will be coming off.
Yeah. Look, there won't be e-gates, but I can tell you that the agencies have been very, I call it fixated on ensuring the customer experience. We know some of the issues that have been present at Auckland Airport around passenger processing. So you never know until we start to operate, but I can assure you that it has been top of mind for all of the key agencies and for the airport company.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, followed by Councillor
Chair, just to follow up, given Nicola's comments around the fact that 2 of our close neighbours are actually going through long-term plan processes now, could we update that staff action to look for an appropriate opportunity to speak with them now in terms of that support?
I have no difficulty with that.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Anna Casey-Cox.
I did notice that the imagery around Hamilton that's used is the lake and the balloons quite a lot. So my question was really in regards to the lake. There is a cyanobacteria warning on the lake at the moment. It's not a particularly clean lake. I'm interested, I guess, in your perspectives on using that imagery and the reality that may be different when people come here. So,
Thank you. The image is about the event. So what we've been using is imagery that is very different for Australians. They don't need beaches. They've got amazing beaches. So we want things that stand out as being very different as a key reason to come and visit our city and our region. And the Balloons Over Waikato event, I probably didn't quite appreciate how different that was until our friends from the Gold Coast Airport were here last week for a morning ascension and had never seen that many balloons in one place ever. So it really did stand us out, and it is an attractor. So it is about the balloons, not the
so
lake.
much the lake.
There's nobody swimming in the lake in the image.
Right.
So it is about the balloons. So I hope that helps. But
no, yeah, it does. It does help.
appreciate it.
I was more just, I guess, asking about your interest generally in water quality and our river and water as an attraction in New Zealand, and just your any challenges in that space.
Councillor Anne, I think we're varying off the subject matter and the scope of this meeting.
Yes, probably. Okay,
you
I
might
can pick it
wanna
up.
talk.
We can talk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Chair, Councillor Maria.
Oh, kia ora tēnā koutou, Nicola. My question is for you about the Regional Tourism Boost Fund. And if you just expand and elaborate again for me, what other tourism organisations are you looking to collaborate with? How much do you think you might apply for, and what will you spend it on?
Oh, it is for collaborations. It's only available for regional tourism organisations. We're one of 30 up and down the country. So it was only open to RTOs. Collaboration is with those neighbouring ones in Auckland and Northland. And what have we applied for? Look, it is commercially sensitive because it is a contestable fund. And we don't know what we've been allocated until we hear the news. When that's been allocated, I'm sure it will appear in the media anyway, because it will be a publicly announced fund.
I appreciate that. Did you consider the Bay of Plenty in Rotorua?
Yes, no, they're part of that Central North Island grouping. So Tairāwhiti, Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, Taupo, Rotorua, Coromandel, Ruapehu, ourselves, Auckland and Northland. Did I capture 10?
Okay, so it's a joint application?
Correct.
Oh, yeah, cool, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that brings to the conclusion. Thank you for coming in today. We appreciate your time. Vanessa, I think you're up next. Sorry for the delay, but we were very focused on the first item. So, Karen.
Morena tātou. Good morning, councillors. I'm just sitting in for Matt Mills today, who's unfortunately unwell, but just introducing Vanessa and Mike. They are here to report on their 6-monthly update as well as their HCBA action plan for next year. We do require a decision from you about the activation plan, which Vanessa will present as well. And that's so that we can release the activation fund in July. So I'll hand it over to Vanessa and Mike.
Good morning, councillors.
Morning.
There we go. So just first to speak to the 6-monthly report, appreciating that the submitted report did focus on the challenges that are currently being felt by the business community and the overall tough economic conditions. So I thought just in terms of imagery, I'd balance this with some positive images of the central city. So first up, you can see our Love the Centre website. So I'm pleased to report this is gaining some very good traction out in the market. We have audiences who are really vibing what there is to do in the central city. We're getting great user activity, and our top 3 pages being visited are events, promotions and activities. In addition to this, we're excited to have a cultural enrichment program underway, and I'll thank Councillor Maria for her help here. So we're currently having curated a series of bilingual proverbs and phrases for use across the website. So if we can just move the slides on. There we go, perfect. So at the moment we have between 4,000 and 6,000 views looking at pages such as the one before, and to hear about the live activations that are happening over the city. So just wanted to show a series of our activation imagery that we're looking to continue with for the next 12 months. So we can just flick through the last couple of slides. You can see these are all the things that have been happening predominantly in Garden Place but around the city, and have been drawing in a good number of people to enjoy what's on offer. So for the next year ahead, just to very briefly elaborate, we'll be focusing on a clean-up in branding. So obviously there's a number of things that are happening within the City Council that we will also be looking to support, and continuing the Central City branding around Love the Centre, because we very much feel like this is where the opportunities lie for us to get some good traction, and it supports some of the great work being done on many levels around the city, particularly with the developments that are underway, those that are nearing completion and those that are looking for a reason to start. So I'll end it there and welcome any questions. And I might move over, Mike, so you've got a microphone in front of you. Thank you.
Right.
Very brief.
Colleagues, any questions?
On that bit, Chair, or just on that bit?
Is
Or
it-
on the whole report?
On all of the reports.
It's the entire report. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your hugely full report, as always. It's really appreciated. It's clear you do a huge amount of work. I'm on page 115, just on the proposed activity plan for next year, and with the comments around the CBD and the work that the Chair and others are doing in this space. July, September 2025, there's only 3 events planned.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity to increase on the quieter times? Because that's such a long period.
Oh, absolutely. Potentially there is. I mean, it is with the realisation that the funding is for outdoor activity.
Yeah.
So we are
Yeah.
and have been at the expense of the elements. It is very difficult with that over winter.
Yeah.
So the predominant focus for activity during that time is around Matariki and what we can leverage that is happening with existing sites like the museum and the Meteor and the library, but also what we can bring to an outdoor element. And yeah, again, we do just battle the elements a lot there. So as soon as we look to create some weatherproofing, which is in the, in marquees or things like that, we're wiping out such a massive part of budget. So it is a balancing act of where the best spend is, and to be honest, we've probably got 70% of the spend happens in the spring, summer months.
Yeah. And in terms of the budget, it's been quite a few years now since you've had that 100,000. We haven't adjusted 2018. We haven't adjusted it.
No.
Is that are you delivering less? Are you delivering less for the same amount of money?
I would say that there are certainly some things that we're paying more
Yeah.
to deliver the same. So that there is definitely being trade-offs. So some of the activations that may have cost 5,000 probably are now sitting at 7,500, which will mean that we are dropping some of the smaller activations to be able to support the big ones.
Okay, and final question, if I may, through the Chair.
Absolutely.
The comments, the report, which was like gold star, Vanessa, on that conference that you went to, that conference looked amazing. I just wonder if you could let the Chair know of an opportunity for the next one. I don't know if they move them around, but the information that you were, like, that was an outstanding conference, wasn't it?
It was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
They had such top quality speakers and spoke to so many relevant topics. It was brilliant.
I bet you wanted to come home and change the world.
I actually wanted to stay there, to be
Yeah,
fair.
yeah. But no, I think, if you could do that, that would be great. Thank you for indulging that, Chair.
No problem, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Jeff.
Thanks, Chair Ewan. Thanks, guys, as always. Vanessa, You refer in one on the report to the sort of the central city landscape reflecting the harsh economic conditions and tired-looking streetscapes, numerous footpaths and streets surrounded by road cones. I just want to kind of see if you felt any impact from some of the work that's recently been undertaken from the council, the clean up on aisle 3 and 4, as it's been talked about here, and also if you're aware of a number of low-risk, low-cost transport projects that have been approved in recent weeks to upgrade streetscapes in the central city.
With regards first up to clean up, I know a lot of obviously what is planned. Probably the impact of what's been talked about hasn't been realised yet. I think the biggest way to see those improvements would be in the street furniture, and that still hasn't been undertaken yet. I think when that part is implemented, obviously there will be much more recognition of that clean-up that is underway. I understand that it's around footpath cleaning, some tree removal, that sort of thing so far, which probably isn't the most visually impactful versus the stuff that's still to happen. But yes, I did hear about the proposed allocation of transportation funding that would see Alexandra Street and Collingwood Street invested in, which I think would be amazing, particularly in that footpath space, and some of the, hesitant to say the word parking, but some parking improvements that will also be happening in the area. And I think I reiterated it in the report, we do welcome any investment that will have some visual impact of cleaning up the central city, because it certainly does need it.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. Oh, sorry, I see my colleagues also have them now. Councillor Sarah.
Thank you very much for coming in and for your continued advocacy for the Central City. I was interested when looking at what some other business improvement districts are doing in other parts of the country. Are there some things that you think we could look at collectively here in Hamilton, or at least explore?
In terms of anything?
Anything
specific?
in terms of dealing with city safety issues, for example, or as an example.
Yes, so I have been talking with my colleagues who run other bids around the country. One of the discussion points from a risk and resilience seminar that I attended up in Auckland a few weeks ago with Mike was around the implementation of an Aura incident reporting system. I don't believe we have Aura here yet, but certainly it's being highlighted, it was highlighted at this conference as being such a good thing for the particularly for the police to be able to utilise with incidents, and two of the key business associations that had this implemented talk very favourably around how it's improved their safety reporting incidents. So it's certainly something that I would be keen to see explored. That's probably the biggest thing that is being talked about around other bids at the moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Anna.
Thank you, and thank you for your amazing report. Just a question on page 103 of your report in regards to the increased homelessness and the commissioned, or the report you're commissioning, are you, on, or someone is, on market realities in housing. I didn't know if that was including social housing, or if you could just expand on what that is. And
it was a discussion point within an interagency discussion point, so it's certainly not a report that we were commissioning, but it was being looked at in terms of just general housing stock was being discussed. So
okay, so that's something we might know about it anyway. But okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxine.
Oh, thank you, and again, awesome report and fabulous work that you do for our city. So completely grateful for that work and the visibility that it has across our city. For last year, you talked about and attempted a bid extension over to Hamilton East, and it's a place that's really starting to grow and get its own identity. Can you give us a bit of an update on where that has got to and whether it's something that you'll still progress?
I think that eventually there would be some merit in actually expanding over to Hamilton East, and certainly there are some great things happening over there with regards to hospitality and the vibrancy they've created over there. Had the bridge gone ahead, the walking, cycling bridge connectivity, that probably would have made a much more compelling expansion proposal. For now, I feel that we need a few things more to be happening in the central city before I believe that we should go and look into that again. Probably something that would be worth investigating over the next year, particularly when the regional theatre comes online and the hotel developments and the clean-up. But I feel there's a bit more priority to be focused on here and getting everything right before looking to expand over into Ham East again.
Thanks very much.
Deputy Mayor.
I was just messaging you. Thanks, Chair. I just wonder if we could have a staff action to look at, we might be able to do this in the annual plan, at looking at increasing the activation fund to at least align it with CPI. Is that appropriate to do? Can we, like, just a staff action? I don't want to do a motion here, but that it gets picked up in consideration with the annual plan?
Certainly I can take that away and we can make sure that that's something that you can discuss, but obviously the only chance now is through the final annual plan deliberations in May.
Okay, come and submit and ask for an increase.
We are not asking for submissions on the annual plan.
Okay, so no, but I want to look at this, so how can I look at this?
Well, I think I will take a note that we can certainly bring that to Council's attention as part of the discussion in May.
So let's make that slightly more formal.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
That it's noted that we want to discuss it rather than make a note, I think, respectfully. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got to try to ask my questions 3 times and you keep jumping back in.
You're so patient. I was just following on from Deputy Mayor. The other thing I'd be, whether it's the Garden Place Working Group or another forum, I'd be interested in the opportunity to further explore the reporting system that was raised as well. Cool. So the Aura, reporting system. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll add that to the suite of
We're going to add it to the
motion.
Great. Cool.
Vanessa, I have and Mike, I have a couple of questions. What else would you like Hamilton City Council to try to do to help you, to help the CBD?
So I do have a few things that I would like to see looked at around the safety and antisocial behaviour. So I understand that these may be being looked at. However, as part of the clean-up, one of the things that we do notice frequently being in Garden Place is the belongings, trolleys, that sort of thing that are left strewn around what is essentially our front door for when people are coming into town. This is often left behind or, temporarily put in public spaces. I would like to see some way that these could be taken and put somewhere as opposed to being left in a public space environment. We do have that sort of strewn throughout the town. When you walk down Victoria Street, there's a lot of places where you will see things like bedding, shopping trolleys, etc. There does seem to be some enforcement element that could see that this could be cleaned up. Things like the conference that I was mentioning before, the Risk and Resilience Conference, I was talking to a company there about shopping trolley systems, Gatekeeper who implement the geo-tracked shopping trolleys that they can't go off-site. It would be great to see these have some level of enforceable element to put the onus on those that offer these shopping trolleys that they can't go off their premises. These are all things that I think could contribute to clean up.
Just on that point, if I could you give me a practical example of where that is in play? Do you have any examples of whether a council has introduced a bylaw or what mechanism they've used?
Again, at the seminar, I was talking to the company who were referencing the bylaws that have been implemented over in Australia. Mm-hmm. So there is wording that can be used for places that have shopping trolleys.
And so just so I understand that, could you expand on that, as in the supermarket would be in breach of the bylaw if they had shopping trolleys that were not restricted to the geographical parking lot?
Yes, in essence, that's it. That if you are a business that offers a shopping trolley transportation system, that it's within the confines, that the trolleys can only work within the confined area that you have that system in place, so be it attached to a car park. That it is geo-tracked to not be able to go outwith of that. At the moment, we do know shopping trolleys, they're significantly used around the town, they're left around the town, they're on the river banks. It does contribute to not making it a visually very nice looking area.
Okay.
But we have one geo-fenced supermarket at the moment.
We do. We have one down Anglesey Street, Woolworths down Anglesey Street.
And have you had an opportunity to use it? Does it work?
Yeah. It does work. I did go and try it, and I just really wanted to be able to say I know it does work. So I tried with all my might to push a shopping trolley through the tracking and was unable to do so.
Wheels just stop.
They just stop. Yeah.
Okay.
In Norton as well, but it was discontinued.
All right.
A few years ago, you certainly couldn't take a trolley out of that area.
Okay. Final question for you. In light of the suggestions of bylaws being introduced, can I have your view as to whether or not this is a useful tool? Because there's some commentary, oh, look, you don't want punitive mechanism. I'm just trying to understand, as an association, how your members are feeling about the importance of this.
So I do feel in terms of social issues, social agencies, we're not one, but we do know that in terms of conducting business, having antisocial behaviour happening is not conducive to a good business environment. We are on a public space, as are a number of businesses, and if some of the bylaws that are already there had some enforceable action behind them, it would go some way to potentially tidying up the area. So where there's currently a bylaw that may say, for instance, no smoking, but there is an education as the enforcement, if it was actually just no smoking, you cannot smoke, you must leave the area if you're going to smoke here, or if you're wanting to smoke, you need to leave the area. That would have way more weight to it than just an education element, and I think that it's a reasonable to see some of the bylaws or that we have existing or that could potentially be used to clean up the activity in the area is a reasonable request.
One final question from me. How often do your members reach out to you and say, look, the business is struggling because of antisocial behaviour or the appeal of the CBD? I'm just trying to understand whether, the magnitude and the depth of the issue and whether it's eroding commercial confidence.
Look, I mean, I sit here as with Mike, being cheerleaders of the CBD, so I certainly don't want to say that there isn't great business happening, because there obviously is, but I mean, we can say that on a daily basis we are talking to businesses about antisocial behaviour, foot traffic, parking, accessibility of the central city. So, we do know that these are paramount to businesses trying to operate in the conditions at the moment.
I said it was my final question, but your answer, I didn't hear you say, well, is it your opinion that there's a correlation between the reduction in foot traffic and antisocial behaviour, i.e. are people choosing not to come into the CBD to do their business, in your view or your members' views, and as such a reduction of foot traffic because of the antisocial behaviour?
We had a meeting earlier this morning with a large landlord who had lost several tenants in the last probably month, and they said it was directly as a result of the antisocial behaviour and the decreased foot traffic in that particular area.
Thank you. Colleagues, I have no other questions. I think that brings to an end. We were expecting CoLab, so we're going to take an adjournment for morning tea for 10 minutes. And then, excellent. All right, cancel that. We're going to bring CoLab in. Thank you very much, Vanessa and Mike.
Thank you.
I was hoping to get through all of this first. We won't do the debate this side of morning tea, because I would like to work with the Deputy Mayor and Sarah to see if we could tie some of your things that you've raised actually in the motion. So we'll take a good 10-minute break when that happens. How many of you have eaten your Kit Kat already? Deputy Mayor. Hello and welcome.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good. Very well, thank you. Morena, everyone.
Calvin and Stephanie, thank you for joining us. Actually, we're not making too bad time. We're only about 10 minutes behind schedule.
Yeah.
If we were an airline, we would claim to be on time because you have a 15-minute buffer. So we're in your hands.
Well, thank you, everyone. As you know, I always enjoy the opportunity to get in front of councils such as yourselves. We don't have that opportunity too often, and it's a great to have the chance to talk to you about what we're up to, and most importantly, solicit feedback, which is what this is all about, right? So, look, we're going to. I appreciate the half-year reports included in there as well at the moment, but in your agenda, but we're going to certainly focus on the SOI, but happy to take questions at the end on both. So I might just hand over to Steph on that point.
Yep, cool. So morena koutou, ko Stephanie Osborne tuku ingoa. I think I know quite a few of you. We'll just quickly cover what we do for Hamilton City. Apologies, this is a bit of a repeat of the Strategic Risk and Assurance presentation from 2 weeks ago. So for completedness, we will cover it anyway. So for Hamilton City, we provide 9 shared services. As you can see, they're quite diverse in nature. So we help with roading asset management, right through to building consent advisory group and work in that space, and also the CoLab learning. So they're really plugged into various parts of our councils. You also benefit from the other forms of collaboration through procurement. So we do group procurement on behalf of our shareholders. We run cross-council working parties that again plug into various parts of council so they can share information across councils and work on initiatives together. And finally, another big part of our business is looking at those opportunities to collaborate further. You'll see in the statement of intent that we have included our 3-year strategy. We did present on this last year, so I won't go into it in great detail, but suffice to say we're moving into the 2nd year of that strategy. As you can see, in terms of outcomes, we are focusing on reducing costs for our shareholders, creating new value for shareholders, and enabling innovation and change. I would also note that when we embarked on the strategy, we made quite a deliberate decision to start working more with what we call smaller willing coalitions. So rather than necessarily being concerned with how many shareholders might be interested in progressing a certain opportunity, it's really just about the size that we need to create scale. So what that means is that we can move a bit faster on opportunities. It means that where there's commonalities across groups of shareholders, but perhaps not others, we can move with that. So that might be, for example, working with just future-proof councils on something. It might be working with our southern councils on something because of the geographical nature of it. Or it might be that there's no rhyme and reason, it's just the need from our shareholders. So that's sort of underpinning, I guess, the way that we're operating. Next slide. So the key points to note in our statement of intent for the draft statement of intent for the period ahead. Last year we changed the way that we fund our procurement support. So we've moved that into the company management and support line or charges, and we did that in a way to hopefully increase utilisation of that service, whereas previously it was funded on a user pays model as councils utilised it. We committed to do that for 18 months and we're just undergoing that review at the moment, so the outcome of that review will be reflected in the final statement of intent before it's published. At this stage, the statement of intent assumes that the arrangement will continue. The second key point is around CoLab Water Services. So we have forecasted for it to remain with CoLab for the period. Of course, this could be impacted by the outcome of water reforms, and of course is very key to Hamilton City as you help us deliver that service with the wholly seconded staff that are employed by Hamilton City. So certainly we see some consolidation of the customer base over time. But we think that with at least 2 water CCOs being established in the Waikato for the forecast period, that it makes sense for CoLab to continue to provide those services to the CCOs and any other councils that are not part of those CCOs. And I guess the bottom line being there that we just want to ensure, have assurance of service with that shared service. So we're in the process of discussing that with Hamilton City. And the final point to note in terms of the nature of our services, the services remain largely unchanged other than we are disestablishing CoLab Learning, which is disappointing. That is a decision that was made by the 10 councils participating. So CoLab Learning is a learning and development service for council staff where they have in-person and e-learning opportunities. So the 10 councils that were participating made a decision that it wasn't being utilised enough in council, and in some cases, as with other services in your councils, there were some financial constraints, and I'm afraid it was a victim of that. So that will be disestablishing by the end of this financial year, which is reflected in the new statement, the statement of intent. So that has resulted in 2 redundancies at CoLab. In terms of the actual opportunities for collaboration and the outlook for that, we actually don't include that in the statement of intent simply because those opportunities don't always nicely and neatly fit in sort of a forecasted period. Did you want to talk a little bit about what's sort of front in mind at the moment?
Yeah, so look, as part of the consultation on the SOI, this year, Peter, the board chair, and myself are going around and catching up with each of the CEs. That's kicked off. We're about 5 out of 12 through. We're catching up with Lance tomorrow morning as it happens. One of the reasons we wanted to do that was because when we started the transformation of CoLab and actually the shareholding councils decided to invest more resource into it, which was about 6 years ago, not a single CE that was around at that time sits around the Waikato CE Forum. We've had a complete swap out. Our friend Craig Hobbs was around at the time and has obviously been and come back into a new council, but that aside, it's completely new faces. So we felt that it was really appropriate for us to test with each of those CEs what does successful CoLab look like for them. So how do we ensure that we are 12, 18 months from now have delivered something that is going to meet the needs of each and every council. And we're confident we can do that. It's just making sure that we're on the same page and properly understand that from the CEs. So look, as I say, we're partway through. The discussions to date have been really fruitful, very strong support for the idea of shared services and collaborative activity. A few ideas which I wasn't going to get into coming out of it. I don't want to presuppose where the rest of the discussions might go, but suffice to say that there's definitely a continued appetite out there for councils doing more with each other through the company. If I switch on to the financials, oh sorry, stay on that previous page, thanks. Yeah, so this current financial year, we had, in last year's SOI, made a decision to reduce council member charges as much as we possibly could by utilising cash reserves that we had built up over a period of time for a variety of reasons. What that meant for Hamilton City was that company management and support member charges dropped from 260 to 89,000. That was a one-off reduction. Obviously those cash reserves are now gone, and that was signalled in last year's SOI. So our modus operandi, if you like, is that we break even on each and every year. We're obviously not here to make a profit and pay a dividend to our shareholders, and so naturally for FY26 we're signalling a increase back to, I guess, what you would regard as normal levels in terms of member charges. Next slide, thanks. So what that means for HCC is a proposed 7% increase in member charges. That's made up of a few things. I think the first and most important thing to note is that our focus is to ensure that we are not letting costs get out of control, and we remain tight on that, and our expenditure year on year is increasing 2.6%, which is broadly in line with CPI. So we think we're doing well on that front. The difference between the 7 and the 2.6 is essentially how other items in the revenue space have moved around year on year. So profitability of other business units, changes in revenue such as interest, which has dropped obviously because our cash balance has dropped because of the utilisation of it last year. Next slide. So it's timely, and it's a bit hard to see, but I thought it was timely, given the discussion around member charges, to let you also know of the flip side. So you might recall this, seeing this previously. It is actually, the numbers up there reflect the results for FY24, so we do this on an annual basis, and obviously we haven't got numbers for FY25 as yet, but essentially it's our reporting framework in terms of the value that collaboration has generated across the region under those three pillars that Steph talked about of enabling innovation, reducing costs and creating value. So those are that's the picture for the entire region. If we go to the next slide, again, you may be familiar with this. This is a snip out of the value reporting that we provide to each of our councils and shows essentially the equivalent of that previous slide, but at a Hamilton City Council level, and also the investment that the council is making into the company. And it's worth noting there, I guess, that in terms of value creation, Hamilton City, we think best estimates saved about $3.5 million from joint procurement contracts and received about 157k worth of efficiency gains and a few other things. And that, of course, is just the stuff that we can measure. It doesn't include all the qualitative value that is obtained by working with other councils. If we go to the final slide, finish up. So look, I've said this to this group on a number of occasions in the past. I am a user pays type of guy. I really want to see a day where CoLab member charges reduced to zero and the company is able to fully fund itself through the charges that it provides to for services that councils receive. So we will persist with trying to keep our company management and member charges down as low as possible. We can do that in a few ways. The first is making sure that we are properly allocating that overhead charge to the services that we currently have in place. We are doing that. There may be a little bit, but it would be tinkering at the edges if we did anything further there. I think the more significant stuff is the second and third bullet point on the screen there, and it's signalled in our 3-year strategy around scaling up shared services and looking for future revenue opportunities, and that would include going to councils outside of our shareholder base. We have no interest in increasing our shareholder base, but I would welcome with open arms any council that wants to take up any of our services, and a number of those are eminently scalable, and even if you're not physically buttressing the Waikato region. So we are looking at a few opportunities to do stuff there, and I think that that's where we can really start to see those management fees start coming down for our existing shareholders. I'm going to leave it there, Chair Wilson, so happy to take questions.
Thanks, Calvin and Stephanie. Colleagues, any questions? Councillor Bidder.
Question. Build Waikato is a fantastic group, but every council has their own online consent system. Can you have a look at that with your member councils, because standardisation would make it a lot easier for the users and should undoubtedly bring economies of scale and savings for your members too.
Yep. Absolutely, and across a number of our service offerings, and indeed your communities live and play in different districts within the region, right? And as you point out, Councillor Bidder, in terms of those that are interacting with building consenting and resource planning, they operate across multiple districts, so consistency is paramount. Certainly that group, when it was originally established, was it did so with a view to aligning as much as possible systems and processes. Certainly we're getting there on the processes front, and we do have a number of councils that are on the same system, but I accept that not all 8 of them are. Yeah. And in fact, Waikato District Council a couple of years ago made the decision not to go with the system that was the system of choice for that group, so which put a little cat amongst the pigeons. But the aspiration is absolutely there, and we'll keep working with councils to try and make that happen.
Thank you. Councillor Huata.
Chair Ewan, tēnā kōrua, kia ora Stephanie, kia ora Calvin. Just to your kōrero, Stephanie, about wanting to maintain water services with CoLab, just can you help me understand how that will work with the potential of the joint CCO between Waikato District Council and ourselves? I was just looking at the website, and I know it's not directly related in terms of the stormwater and wastewater, but I see that under your water services that Waikato District Council don't sit under that.
Yeah, you jump in there. If I may, I'll jump in there, being quite close to it. So yes, the backstory to CoLab Water Services is that it came about when Waikato District left the original partnership that was between Waipā and Hamilton City and Waikato District. And that was on the back of moving to the water care and outsourcing to water care, which is why Waikato District don't feature in the offering at the moment. Funnily enough, Watercare have recently approached us for one of our CoLab water services, and so we have Watercare back as a customer as we sit here today. So that's the first thing. The second thing is obviously since with that departure of Waikato District, there was an opportunity to either have redundancies because it was going to shrink the partnership by about 33%, or look at how we might actually grow the offering and expand it to other councils, and that's how CoLab Water Services came about. For a bunch of reasons that I won't get into, the structural arrangement that ended up happening was that Hamilton City Council would continue to employ those people, and they are contracted wholly to CoLab, who then provide services to, I think there's 7 or 8 councils that are involved in across the 3 pillars of CoLab Water Services. As Steph alluded to, obviously the water reform is going to have an impact on that. There will be a consolidation of customers. We still think it makes sense that CoLab continue to provide that service. We are the shared services company. It might be that we have fewer. We won't get to 2 straight away. There are some councils that receive services like Rotorua, who receives CoLab Water Services at the moment, that aren't going to be part of either of the CCOs. So there will continue to be albeit reduced customer base, but I do think that there is an opportunity for us to grow that service further. And in fact, recently Hamilton Airport became a customer of ours in relation to the new bore that they've put in place there. So we're doing sampling and analysis for them. So does that answer the...
For now, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Ewan. The food and alcohol licensing shared service that you mentioned on page 3 seems like a good idea. What were the potential advantages there for councils, and why did it fail?
Look, for me, the potential advantages of that particular offering were, again, consistency, to the extent that you've got people dealing with multiple districts. Duplication of effort is a no-brainer, to be honest, but also investment in systems, right? So if you think from a regulatory point of view, and I would say that systems, again, somewhat ironically, given the success of the past, has continued to crop up on our discussions that I referred to earlier with CEs of late. Implementing and maintaining systems across multiple councils is massive value for money. There is efficiency there to be had in spades, and quite frankly, the councils aren't utilising that. So I think we're really missing a boat there, and obviously that would apply to the regulatory spaces Andrew alluded to as well, but not just in relation to building consent, including the food and alcohol licensing. In terms of why it failed, look, I'm trying to recall, Councillor Taylor, the specific reasons.
Some councils wouldn't get on board, yeah?
Yeah, so my observations from some councils, and I can't recall exactly which ones, there wasn't really a belief that they had a problem. And I think that's sort of the, I guess, cultural space that council staff live in. And quite rightly, you know, they are tasked with delivering core services in a resource-constrained environment. So they're not necessarily thinking about reimagining it, or that they might have an immediate problem that they have to react to. So that was some of the feedback that we had, is that they didn't feel they had a problem to address, to therefore seek those efficiencies and doing it together.
All right. Doesn't that kind of go to the heart of the matter? That I mean, shouldn't they be embracing this?
Yeah, yes, you're right. Well, we think they should. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. Look, the reality is that most people will resist change, or not be necessarily open to change. And that's not a criticism, it's just the way a lot of people are wired, right? And if they are under the pump in their day job, to say to them or ask of them, can you go away and have a look at this thing that we might want to do on a cross-council basis? If they're not being measured on that and being told, being given a directive from above that actually needs to be a priority for them because it's worth investigating, why on earth would they be compelled to do it, right? They want to be making sure that they deliver to their own council, and we completely understand that, but there is no doubt, in fact some have said that the CoLab co-design operating model and our reliance on, I guess, business unit leaders and other staff to accept and be willing to accept that change is necessary is actually broken. We're a bit reliant on that. And Peter and I have said on numerous occasions that we think any change needs to be leader-led, fundamentally. So for mine it is, how do we ensure that the CEs are getting the message that it's okay to give them the directive for them to give the directive to staff that these are priority areas.
Well, I would have
and
thought
it's up
so,
for
yeah.
each of the councils to work out what those priorities are, right, and where the focus is.
So was Hamilton City open to this particular one?
To be honest, I can't recall. Jeff?
It'd be good to get the answer for that at some stage.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The other issue with that, the approach to that particular opportunity is that we approached it that we wanted councils to agree on what the ultimate success criteria would be up front and then go ahead and with the move into design. Because the constant kind of, I guess, pendulum we find ourselves in is how much detail on design and information and solution can we give up front for councils to have a great degree of confidence that it will work. So we had that feedback that they therefore didn't feel that we had that design. Which we're not surprised, because that was kind of the intention of the approach, is that instead of spending a long period of time and ultimately a lot of money on designing something that then may be rejected, we wanted to agree the success criteria up front. So that's kind of, that, as I say, there's that scale that we are constantly trying to get the balance right.
Yeah.
Fail fast.
I mean, we could develop business cases up the wazoo, quite frankly, right, and spend an awful lot of time and effort getting to the nth degree on return on investment and stuff like that. Is that really the best use of time? I'd rather get the right people from councils in tent and design with them a solution that is fit for purpose, and we do it really, really quickly. And the Building Consent Processing Hub, which will launch in May, is a good example of that. We had two very keen managers from a couple of councils who drove that with the support of CoLab, and it's going to get stood up pretty quickly. So it's making sure that the right people, those that are ultimately the buyers, and there's multiple buyers within each council of any opportunity, have the enthusiasm and have it as a priority for them.
Yeah. Look, I understand the sort of fail fast methodology that you're using. I guess as an elected member, I'm interested if there's potential cost savings for our council, just what our approach was as a council there. But yeah, thanks very much.
If I may, just through the chair, and I don't know the specifics of this one, but Jeff, certainly we are very enthusiastic about shared services, and we wish to pursue those. It may be that in some instances a better partner for us may not be some of the smaller councils, maybe another metro, and an example of that is our payroll system, for example, where we are working with Tauranga, because same scale, same pace, same needs. So I think there's a general ethos that we're very much committed to shared services, but as Kelvin has said, we are a big council with big scale, and so we already have a number of efficiencies that we bring to the table. So it has to work for both
So
parties.
sometimes it makes sense and other times it doesn't.
Correct.
Okay. No, thanks very much for that. Thanks,
Colleagues, thank you very much. We've gone over time, but I thought it was interesting to explore. No final questions? No. Calvin, Stephanie, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you once
appreciate
again
it.
for the opportunity. Pleasure as
Cheers.
always.
Thank you.
Colleagues, we're going to break now for 10 minutes. Sarah and Deputy Mayor and me will try to work a few words for the motion on item 7. 15 minutes? Okay. So we'll come back at 11 11:20. 11:40.
Okay.
11:40, right? three bits of it. Right, colleagues, let's continue. So we are on page 22, which is the motion stemming from the external agencies, including obviously the airport and the Hamilton Central Business Association, including the activation plan and civic financials and CoLab. The Deputy Mayor and Senior Councillor Thompson, well, see, she, yes, well, I'm recognising her status of her committee and the fact that she's a chair. I've just decided to call you Senior Councillor. Has worked on some addition that are now up on the board. Is there any questions of those additions? If not, I'm happy to move it. Deputy Mayor Angela will second it. And if there's no questions, I'll start the debate as mover, just very quickly. First of all, I would say that there was a lot in the external agencies' reports. I'm really excited about Vanessa's work with the Hamilton Central Business Association. I really feel her passion, and that she is clearly playing an important role in trying to reduce the barriers of businesses in the CBD to succeed. So I fully support her work. Moving quickly on to CoLab, I remain convinced that CoLab could be a step change in eventually getting some real efficiencies within local government. And although I'd like to take a pen and start a discussion on amalgamation, clearly there's probably not that much appetite currently for that, but I believe CoLab, correctly resourced, can break down the silo mentality of some of other councils and embrace the opportunity. And finally, with my 40 seconds, regarding the airport, look, I'm particularly excited about new international flights. I'm so pleased that it's going to be a reality. I do remind everybody that Council has been reminding the airport of taking every opportunity for the last 6 years. So I'm pleased to see that come together. I do want to say that I sometimes find the way things are communicated between the airport CCO and elected members is not fit for purpose and not best practice. And so I will continue to try to discuss that, and I think we need to be very mindful of that with Three Waters, because we're creating yet another entity, and talking to our go-between isn't the same as sharing with all elected members. And respectfully, talking even to our mayor is not the same as talking to council, right? And so I just highlight that. So I went over time, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry, yeah, your point of
Mr. Chair, given that we are covering 3 significant reports and you have been as concise as you have, could I suggest we have at least 3 minutes per speaker for this debate?
Yeah, look, I think that's very sensible. Usually we would do it, but I'm happy to rule.
And I apologise for not
No,
doing
no, it's fine. On this issue, let's make it 3 minutes if we could, just to help everybody, because there's a lot of meat in this subject. So thanks for that that suggestion. Deputy Mayor Angela, you now have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and I just reduced my notes to fit to get through everything, but that's okay. Look, I thank all of the partners, the CCOs and other organisations that presented to us today. The presentations from Nicola from Hamilton Waikato Tourism and Vanessa and the team HCBA, as well as CoLab. Always a lot of information for us to digest and go through, but really appreciate the openness. It is time that we face looking at the Activation Fund. That is something that I put forward some years ago, and it's been a very good success for the Central City, but we do need to address the inflation on that. Just turning my mind to the airport, it was a really interesting read actually. While the the half yearly report to December 2024 was subdued in terms of passenger numbers, I thought that reading the report was resoundingly bright. I reflected also that the crossover with the sweet story on Kermit the Detector Dog, I noticed that got a few viral hits on the different social media platforms, and that pooch nearly gave the secret away of Jetstar arriving back then. I thought that was quite sweet. But look, as the report clearly reflects, this will directly inject an estimated increase of passenger numbers with 60,000 direct inbound travellers, and that's something that, as the report clearly states, will increase our GDP across the region by about 45 million annually. That's not something small, that's really significant. For me, the statement of intent prioritises, and we heard also from the presenters, future-proofing the airport. It clearly demonstrates their long-term sustainable approach. And as a shareholder, we can be confident with that. So yeah, I guess it was a good report from my reading, given the current context with passenger numbers dipping, but with Jetstar basically poised to take off. You know, the airport's navigating the present with some care and diligence, but moving towards a significant economic change for Hamilton and the region. So that is something to be excited about. And given that's Council's primary objective and ownership of the airport is around economic growth for Hamilton and our community in the wider region, I think that's progress we can appreciate and very much look forward to. So thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome. Councillor Jeff.
Thanks, Chair Ewan. Just starting with the airport, I like the revised statement of intent that we saw today, with more focus on aeronautical, domestic and international, on top of the great work that they already do in terms of property development. I was really pleased to hear the latest on the runway extension and an acknowledgement that an ideal situation would be an extension of that designation, and it may not be something that happens for a long time, but it's good to keep that option open. In terms of the CBD, I guess I've felt lately that I'm conscious that we talk negatively about the CBD a lot, and I think we have to be careful because it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But every time we talk negatively about it because bad things happen, it sort of exacerbates perceptions, and I just feel it doesn't really take us forward. So it's an interesting position, the CBD, because in the long term we know it's got a bright future. 2 hotels, the regional theatre, hundreds of millions of dollars of government money going into providing underground infrastructure so we can build apartments and townhouses. In the meantime, we have issues which make it hard to see that bright future. And, you know, we've got a tough economic times, we've got people still working from home, so there's less foot traffic, we've got vagrants in Garden Place, etc., and we've got parking. I will say that, for me, the jury is still out on parking. There was a simplicity to 2 hours free, park and walk away, and councils moved away from that. And I never believed, especially in the later years, that 2 hours free was monitored and enforced the way it should have been. I think if it was enforced as well as we are now able to do with technology, it would have been much more successful. And it has had that magical simplicity which I think we've lost about parking in the central city. But I think, look, there are some factors such as the economic environment we can't change, or people working from home when they damn well need to get back into town. But we have made big steps in terms of looking after our central city. I think we've made a step change in the last 6 months. There's been a lot of work, the great work of cleaning up aisle 3 and aisle 4, the tidying up. We've got street furniture arriving in June, tree planting in winter. In fact, the noise that you have been hearing out there is a old tree and garden place disappearing. Staff are already on the job. And also we've got new transportation projects to improve the streetscapes, you know, Alexander Street, Collingwood Street, Hood Street, around the theatre. So I think this council has made a step change, a commitment to looking after the central city better. And that's a really good first step. Thank you.
Councillor Huata.
O kia ora tātou, for our Waikato Regional Airport, I just want to mihi to the staff there, to Mark and Scott. It's so exciting with the new flights opening up overseas, considering that in Sydney our population is over 80,000 New Zealanders, and in the Gold Coast there's over 40,000. I look forward to future flights, especially to and from Perth, where the numbers of New Zealanders number 60,000 plus. And on a personal note, my son is moving over to Perth this year, so I'd love to have easier access to go and visit and him come home. Just in the report, they didn't note any cultural considerations, and perhaps it's because they couldn't see them, but they're there. They're definitely there, and all of their marketing collateral, I just want to mihi to them how wonderful that they acknowledged that they needed to have more of a Māori cultural presence in their marketing collateral overseas, and so that's a consideration that they've actually taken note of. So there is something that they could have put in their report about that. Also with their ongoing relationships with mana whenua, I've also looked at the different businesses that will be linking into and being built to further develop the airport, and throughout their website there is constant references to Māori cultural themes, ideas and values. So they are in fact considering that. For Nicola in the Hamilton Waikato tourism, again with the cultural collaboration and the collaterals of the visuals, it's so exciting and to see that happening. Also, it was great to see her at the Waikato River Festival at the Hamilton Gardens that we were all invited to, and Anna also attended. And to see the potential that cultural tourism has for the city of Hamilton, and their acknowledgement of the kingitanga as a unique, distinct feature of this area, and how more we can springboard off that to really put our city on the map in the world. For Vanessa, I just want, and from the Hamilton Business Central Association, I want to acknowledge Vanessa for her passion, her dedication, and all the work that she does on the smell of an oily rag. So I fully support us reviewing the Activation Fund to meet the current inflation rises. Like it was mentioned, 2018 was the last time that they had a rise, so I'm looking forward to seeing that motion in there and supporting it as well. And also the mahi that she's doing to really spruce up the website and include te reo Māori and the Māori language and phrases throughout, so that just becomes normalised. CoLab, I'm interested to learn more about how the water services that they provide will incorporate Waikato District Council in the future, with the CCO on the horizon and us joining together. Kia ora tātou.
Councillor Emma.
I just want to thank the airport and Waikato Tourism for their presentation. It's certainly an exciting time for the region, and I appreciate the collaboration to get better outcomes for the city. And the addition of Jetstar and international travel will bring a vibrancy and a real opportunity to sell our city and gain some significant economic benefits to the region. But I'm also mindful of some of the risks that could come with international travel, and look forward to those upcoming assessments and the interventions that will come as a consequence of this. I also appreciate Councillor Ewan's push for a stronger communication lines between us as 50% shareholders. I just want to focus on HCBA for a moment and to thank Vanessa and Mike and the HCBA Association. I'm constantly impressed by the continued advocacy they lead for our city, our business and our community. This advocacy recently has triggered a number of issues for council that we're addressing following their presentation earlier this month. I know on parking, elected members are having 2 large workshops coming to us to find some solutions in this space. For events in the city, again, another workshop has been held as a result of Deputy Mayor and Councillor Louise's motion to reduce red tape to help encourage events and make them easier to hold in the city and bringing some vibrancy back. And I specifically want to thank Vanessa and the team for the support that they're giving to smaller event holders. And just looking at the over 30 events that they support across the year, as well as the number of social events that they hold, I think we're getting really good return on our activation grant for the city. Garden Place has been a hot topic at present. It's clear that antisocial issues have been having a negative impact and discouraging some visitors. I'm mindful with the theatre and hotels coming to the city that we need to ensure our city is thriving in a welcoming space. So I'm keen to see an and approach. I know we're looking at some of the bylaws that Councillor Wilson is talking about and other councillors as well as some social service aspects to support that side of things. But I do echo Councillor Taylor's sentiment that there's been a real shift in focus from council, and we are actively working on these issues and investing in the city to give it the love it deserves, and I do believe it has a bright future. So also, quickly just advocate for the ideas of trolley fencing. I know Mangai Norm has often lead dives into the river, and I know he would appreciate the significant difference that geofencing would have on the health of our awa. So quick thanks to all our external partners and for their passion and resource and time that they give to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Amber. Councillor Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I support the statement of intent for the airport. Waikato Tourism, definitely keen to have those conversations with our neighbours in Waikato and Waipa. I am concerned to hear that Waikato Tourism is having to dip into its reserves and cash savings in order to promote our region to potential Australian visitors with the new Jetstar flights coming on board soon. That's obviously not sustainable, and all of us in this area, including close neighbours Waikato and Waipa, are benefiting from that promotion we do need to bring that discussion back to the table. In terms of shared services, I think we need stronger political leadership on this. We have started that with sending letters to other councils to say we're really keen to pursue shared services and be more active in that. But maybe it's a case of sitting down with, for example, Waikato District Council, who we're already working with on waters and essentially having a shared service for waters, to say, hey, look, where are the other opportunities for us to work together and for us to have that discussion at a political level. I think it's something that we as elected members really need to start driving. In terms of the central city, I'm concerned by the drop in footfall. There's a pretty obvious drop when you look at the graphs. We really do need to we need to do as much as we can as the council to ensure that we're encouraging people into the central city. We're doing a lot. There's a lot that's just about to happen. We're on the cusp of getting it looking cleaner and tidier, and I'm really excited by the work that is being done. The Activation Fund, personally, I think we need to do more than just look at increasing it by inflation going forward. It probably needs a bump if we want to make any serious impact. I think also the trolleys, we've talked about this before as a council and started some work in the space. I'm really excited to speed up that work now. It is visually not attractive for the city, and it does make the city look more run down and neglected. And ultimately for the supermarkets, for most of the supermarkets, the cost of losing the trolleys in itself has not been enough to incentivise them to make the investment in geofencing. So I do think at this stage a bylaw is almost certainly needed. I also think in terms of events, we're still too risk averse, and that's putting cost on those trying to hold events and making it hard. Even with the work that we've been trying to do, I'm still hearing that it's hard. So we as a council need to think, actually, are we trying to cover ourselves with too many risks? Is there a way to actually just make this easier for people? So much happening, and I'm excited to see it kind of come to fruition. Yeah.
Colleagues, I have Councillor Tim, you're not speaking. I have no one else. Okay. Right. So I'll just very quickly on the right of reply. I have been able to find the slide presentation, the airport circulated from the AGM back in November 2024, and you all received a copy from it. And it was a single slide talking about, on a single slide, 3-year outlook, and it did have a little icon that said international $6 million. And so when I was asked yesterday, did I remember the figure? I didn't, but apparently we all got told back in November it was 6 million. I make the note, 6 million is less than 7 million. So I just highlight the fact that it's clearly changed. I really want to, take a moment to re-emphasise the importance of regaining international flights. There is nothing quite as heartwarming to be in a city like Sydney or the Gold Coast and to see Hamilton on a departure board with London, Hong Kong and New York. And I guess I have to say to my former colleagues at Kiwi Air, when we commenced some nearly 30 years ago, I remember that feeling. And I remember what it's like to inaugurate an international service into the Gold Coast, because Kiwi did that. And we also commenced services into Sydney. And of course, that then led to 16 years of international air service. And literally, I would suggest over that period, a significant number of jobs, and we're talking tens of millions of dollars of economic development. So I am delighted to see it coming back. I think this committee for the last 6 years, including under a former chair of economic development, Ryan Hamilton, now MP, who championed and kept saying to the airport, don't lose focus of this. And we had to push hard. And I'm glad ultimately we got an outcome. And my final comment is in terms of a suite of bylaws, and I actually get what Councillor Jeff is saying about the danger of having to keep referring to the antisocial behaviour in the CBD as you attract more attention to the problem. I get that narrative. I don't disagree with it, but I also say we've got to have the broader narrative to be convinced that we need to fix the problem, and we're doing that. And I am convinced that fixing it includes having a suite of bylaws. And I love the idea of geofencing these supermarket carts. And if there's a series of organisations who should be really good citizens in getting this done, it's duopoly, who are enjoying providing highly priced sales throughout the country. So they can take a little bit of a step and sort out their trolleys. and do it as quickly as possible. And if they don't, we'll create a bylaw, and then they can manage that process. Right, colleagues, it's been moved and seconded by our Deputy Chair. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent, thank you for that. We are moving on. General Manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In the interest of time, I'll briefly speak to this. So 2 parts to my report. One is a strategic summary of the work program for the committee for this triennium, for this balance of this triennium. I'm actually quite excited when you see it literally outlined. There's actually a huge amount coming to this committee, and there's a number of those exciting topics through the agenda today. So that's the first part, to give you an outline of what's going to come through the remaining meetings of the cycle. The second part is our outcomes tracker, again outlining the outcomes that this committee is achieving. I note a number of those are shown as yellow and basically as ongoing, although I feel that post today's meeting, a number of those will move into a status of green. So there are a number of items either been reported today in open or in PX where some of those matters are moving through to green. So through the Chair, I'm happy to leave it there and take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the General Manager? If not, very good report, thank you. I will move the motion that simply is to receive the report, seconded by Councillor Tim. I have no debate. I'll open it up for debate. No debate. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent. We're ploughing along. Item 9, Strategic and General Manager update. My favourite part. Welcome, Tiki.
I believe it's good afternoon, yes. I promise not to keep you between you and your lunch for too long. So just generally, Hamilton's economy entered into negative growth in December. It's the first time since the GFC that has happened. Overall, the national economy has been doing pretty poorly as well, and largely that's a reflection of that. The New Zealand economy had a boost from tourism and a boost from dairy production and prices that we have had to a smaller extent, and that's largely where the difference lies. In terms of spending, we've seen quite a big fall across Hamilton. About $30 million less was spent last year than the year before, and obviously that has flow-on effects for our businesses. So not a great outlook. And then, of course, the topic that is on everyone's mind, Donald Trump. So as I kind of outlined in the report, Donald Trump's largest impact on New Zealand at the moment is uncertainty, and the effect that is having on our stock markets, the effect that is having on businesses, and how confident people feel in investing. And that's huge. It's a really, really big thing. In terms of tariffs, that ultimately has an impact on the consumers and the importers. So the American people and the people importing goods from overseas are the ones that will pay the most. If New Zealand took on a retaliatory stance and decided to put tariffs on if we were paying tariffs, then that would have an inflationary impact for us. But at this stage, that is where the biggest chunk of these tariffs are going to actually put pressure on. For our exporters, that comes to bear in terms of higher levels of inflation in those countries mean that people have less money to spend. Their central banks will increase their mortgage rates and they will have even less money to spend. So it has a lot of flow-on effects for the wider global economy and for Hamilton's economy. So those are the 2 key points. There's probably a fair bit that's changed since I wrote this report on Donald Trump. He's pretty good at mixing things up, but I'm open to taking any questions.
Colleagues, we've got a wonderful opportunity to ask questions.
Sorry, who is Donald Trump?
I'm going to America soon, and apparently they've started checking, so I'm not going to say anything bad. Yeah.
Okay. No questions, colleagues? Vicky, thank you very much. Mike.
Afternoon, moving along. Thank you very much. Our report in the open session just covers a few areas that we've traditionally covered. However, I've structured it a little bit differently, just given that we now are welcoming in a new staff member, and just to make it a bit clearer. So first part of the four really is traditionally the foundation of our program, the business relationships element managed by Arif Khan, who's here. So far this year, he's met with over 20 businesses, again, on our regular full-on engagement process that builds again, as I said, the fundamental and foundational bits of our program. Really key bits there, and I think some of the things that Tiki just echoed are coming through in those meetings around some positivity, but also quite a bit of uncertainty at times. Second bit, I'd like to introduce Martin Brock, who joined in the what we now call the business.
Stand up, Martin, so we can see you back there.
They look like Secret Service agents.
Yeah, where's the earpiece?
Yeah. So Martin joined from just across the road at Wintech, and really brings that might of deep marketing experience, storytelling, branding, all the things that we've been doing, but without a key person in that role for about a year. So really it just turbocharges what we want to do in that area around messaging, branding, telling all the great things that are happening here. You know, to Councillor Jeff's point, you know, really with what's coming down the track, really making sure that that translates into the way people think about us as they go about their business investment decisions. Two key parts about that. One is a long anticipated prospectus about Hamilton, so sort of the why about us, succinctly and pointedly telling our value proposition, and working with the comms team once that's developed mid-year is to really be targeted about how we go out and tell the story about, you know, even though there is economic uncertainty, we are a good place to invest. Second part of that is thinking of new and creative ways to do that same thing. So near and dear to your heart, Chair, at the airport, we're working with the airport company to figure out a way, as I travel the world like you do, whenever you're at an airport, there's something there that tells you about that place, usually tourism and other things. But, you know, we said we want to tell the story of the wider area among the shareholding councils from an economic perspective. How do we do that? So Martin's leading a project on behalf of all the airport shareholders to do that quite effectively. So quite exciting, and more to come there. The other two bits are can be taken together in a way. It's really how we work with our future-proof partners. Critically important that as we message, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing it not just in isolation as Hamilton City, but truly our economic strength is that we are part of this sub-region that is powering the Waikato. So how do we do that and work together? Really, really good to work in that future-proof framework to be able to speak that way. We're looking at a piece of work to create data-driven insights at a sub-regional level so that you can effectively communicate that economic might. And then building on that at the regional level, now we're 6 months, maybe a little bit less, on our regional group, which is all the TA economic development from the TA across the Waikato, engaging weekly, meeting monthly, to really drive home where we can all work together and continue to position the entire region. But it is locally driven. I think that's the key that came through in all of our discussions is, you know, if you were to want to build a regional entity, you would start with really strong, engaged, connected local economic development people, and guess what? We have that across all of the 11 TAs. So joining them up, meeting regularly, finding where opportunities do come in, bringing it to the wider group to say, how do we address this opportunity as a region has been really, really good to see, and more to come on that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions of Mike or his team? Martin, just a very quick welcome. Lovely to have you join us. Arif, always thank you for the great work you do. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sean. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Anna. No
Sorry.
problem.
Just, Mike, the work you're doing collaborating with all the other councils, is that a conversation you've had with CoLab at all? I'm just interested, given that, it's just, we've just been talking about it.
So I haven't led the conversation, one of my peers has, but CoLab from about 2 months ago takes over the organization, the meeting minutes, the coordination, really because a lot of us are running our own programs. So when we come together, just that streamlining. So I can't speak too much to it, but I know it has been very nice to not have to be the minute person or the coordinator. So I think everyone would agree it's been very helpful and impactful.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you very much. On to Sean, H3, please. Colleagues, whilst Sean's taking a seat, I am going to try to get us all the way through to the resolution to exclude the public before lunch. And then I am really keen to get us finished by 2:30 to give you some idea of time frames. So I am ploughing along. Sean, I'm in your hands.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Look, the report that I've got included within this paper relates to the portfolio within the destinations group, which is H3, the gardens, zoo, and the museum. Just before I talk specifically to each of those destination groups, you'll recall there's been previous questions about our activity when it comes to acquisition of major events, and the question on the Event Acquisition Fund, which sits within my portfolio, and it links a little bit to earlier discussions with HCBA. I just wanted to give you some clarity because it was a question asked previously. The budget for the Event Activation Fund is just under $99,000. Oh, sorry, $100,000. It was in the prior LTP sitting at around $230,000, and the prior LTP was even more again. So it has dropped quite significantly. I would stress that it's not a fund that we use to provide cash inducements to a promoter for a big show. It's mainly to provide things like city hosting, the city welcoming an All Blacks team or a team from Argentina or whatever, a bit of promotional bunting, something and get to take place in Garden Place. So it's getting pretty skinny for us with that sort of budget level. Most other cities have quite a significant fund on this front, and as you know, I never ever push you for more money on anything, and I just go with it. But it is getting harder, and especially when you consider a lot of other cities who are pitching for some of the same things that we pitch for. They will include the costs of traffic management. They'll include street cleaning costs, security stuff. So I am just flagging with you, it is getting a little bit tighter for us. That said, I still believe we have real competitive advantage in a number of other areas, which helps us to overcome that. So I know I'm painting a slightly grim picture, but I do want to also stress that we have other benefits that at times can sort of overcome that. And we're working on two quite big opportunities at the moment, and we're working hard to not come back to you asking for any money on that because it's a bit tough and a bit tight. The other thing that has been raised as a question is the economic impact of events that we have, and included in the report you'll see there is a couple of samples. We tend to normally put in a sample of a snapshot of economic and if possible, social benefit that comes through from isolated events. We've done a bit of work into looking into what about a more of an omnibus survey of the total portfolio of what we're doing across our group in terms of economic and social benefit. It's actually a very big exercise, and I really can't do anything on that right now, frankly, once again, because of budget. And I need to talk to you at the LTP time with a much broader case for doing that. So we are doing snapshots. We're reporting those snapshots to you, and you can use some of them as a good example, like, you know, for example, the 660 concert that we had, what that generated, over 3 million local spend, the English cricket test last year and so forth. So we do have those snapshots. In terms of, if I go into the operations themselves, H3, we've had a very good half-year report, and that's continued into this year, or the final 6 months of the financial year. We've had big revenue gains that were beyond our expectations, as you will read in the numbers, and that's been heavily driven by business events that have been taking place at Clawton. So they have been quite sort of stand out for us. What is really interesting for me, it's been a long time since I have seen in the media across New Zealand and elsewhere, coming from central government and other cities, talking up the benefit of business events. There's a lot of talk out there. Government's actually putting in more money to promote business events at the moment, which I've never seen before. Nicola's involved with that through HWT, and you just see a lot more of the cities out there talking about the value of business events and the fact that they're actually investing in them and taking a focus. And it's an interesting change, because it normally isn't talked about as much as it is, but it's certainly been a real driver for our fortunes at H3, or the Clawton's operation, thus far, and certainly into the rest of this year. Hamilton Gardens, don't have a lot to say there. You've had reports from us about progress after the reopening of the new visitor centre. The visitor numbers are staying strong. We're taking in around between 6,000 and 7,000 people a week into the enclosed gardens. It's quite rewarding to see that, and the feedback and everything else going on. And I'm still signalling to people that at one stage we may look at considering some variable pricing options for quiet periods, and also variable pricing for the really busy peak periods. The forward bookings that we're getting for escorted tours into the enclosed gardens for next summer is particularly strong. So strong that we're quite nervous about whether or not we can get enough staff to be guides for that on a casual basis, because obviously it's very tough on time. So that's a bit of a challenge that we have ahead of us. In terms of the zoo, likewise, also running very well to plan in terms of headcount and the numbers we're going through. You're hoping to get information presented to you on our planning for the accommodation precinct at the zoo, and we are hoping to do an information session with you in early May or mid-May, and I think we have that booked in. I'm sorry it's not sooner. I would stress, however, it's a very big project, and it's made up of a lot of different components. We have to, for example, have a designation change on the land in order to do certain things to allow it to happen. But we are working on it. I have seen some visuals that the team have created that's allowing us to start preparing our budgets. They were quite exciting. I was tempted to flick them up here, but then I thought I'd better not. But I will signal to you, we're not talking about a big hotel or a motor lodge or anything like that. We're sort of going back to basics, glamping, motorhome park where you can back in and have the big back window looking out over the Savannah precinct, and obviously Airbnb in the properties that we have. What's really important, however, before we do the accommodation bit, we actually have to have the sizzle ready. So we've got to have the Savannah precinct itself, so we've got the livestock for people to actually see rather than just a grass paddock. So be assured that our work is underway on that, and we'll have a clear idea of costs, what we can do within our current budget envelope and over what period of time. The museum is going really well once again. Our numbers have been stronger since its reopening, and we're getting good feedback, and the team are now focusing on diversification of the sorts of not just exhibitions, but actually some of the other wee events that they sort of do. I think Pilates coming up for any of you who are interested, although we're doing Pilates on the grounds at Seddon Park as well on a nice sunny day too. So there's quite a few things going on, and I want to just talk about, and I know we've talked about the reopening of the museum after all that work that was done. That was done really well. It was such a complex set of actions that had to take in the museum, ripping up floors, replacing roofs, air conditioning system. Is quite a complex project, but it's probably the least disruptive that we've come across, and the way it was delivered by the team, was quite impressive, I've got to say. And that's it for now. I think I've said a lot, probably more than I intended, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sean, for those very clear highlights. Colleagues, any questions? If no questions, I will quickly... I was hoping. Councillor Huata.
Super quick, for the summer tours in the gardens, would you consider taking on casual staff like you would at any other season-dependent tourism attraction?
Oh, absolutely, that's what we want to do. Yeah, we need a good casual pool. The challenge is finding people that can say, yeah, I can work from 10 until 2, and also be on call to do other odd hours, and we are struggling to find people that have that flexibility, because quite often it's a little bit short notice. Even as it is now, we are calling casuals on a Friday afternoon saying, hey, can you get in here tomorrow? You know, that's because of something's popped up, so it's a challenge. But yeah, we want them.
Maybe city councillors would like part-time job.
Need a job after October, so.
So may I. I'll line up with you.
Please do.
Councillor Anna.
Kia ora, Sean. I agree the report that they've done in Christchurch would be useful to have here. I guess just in terms of the snapshots, one of the questions, I quite like stories about that show impact as well, and I wonder for our events that we host and that bring people here, could it be possible to have some stories from local businesses around how much that brings to them, just on a more, I just feel like that, for me, that would be more, just as powerful as these bigger numbers snapshots.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good
yeah.
point. We could look at doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have done that sort of thing in the past, but if we look at some of the downstream suppliers, and what they do. So, we had an event a wee while ago where a marquee was put up for a dinner on the Oval, and the local supplier, because it was $40,000 just to erect a thing and do nothing else. So,
yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues. So I will move the...
I've been very good today.
Who's the determiner of good? Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, Mr Chairman. Sean, thank you for the encouraging update you've given. You mentioned variable pricing as a possible option for Hamilton Gardens. And that in particular that could be related to seasons so that off-peak might be a bit cheaper. Does it also include the possibility of variable pricing for international tourists as opposed to those from our region?
We haven't considered in that context because of challenges of actually how you do it to distinguish from one for the other, but we have certainly considered higher pricing for peak periods, but not to try and differentiate between international and that. There's a few issues. I mean, as it is, to provide the free access to Hamiltonians when we've got a paid system, it's actually quite a complex process that we've had to put in place so that we can validate Hamiltonians to give them free access. So another variable just adds to it. I'm not saying it's not doable, but it is a challenge.
I know you are actively considering the idea of a pass that would include access to other attractions such as the zoo, etc. Might it be made easier by the introduction of that system?
I don't think so, but I need to research it and understand that better. Yep.
Right. I am also mindful, and I speak as a former tour guide who might need to return to that employment. You never know later in the year. Is it possible perhaps to have a system allowing a little bit more certainty for our tour guides, because the roster is extremely variable and can, for our casual staff, can mean sometimes a fortnight and more between taking a single tour group at the moment. And I wonder whether that's a problem, because on its own it's not an income. It really needs to be based around other activities. Is it possible, if you're looking for an increase in the number of tours, perhaps to have a slightly more consistent program?
Well, as we actually increase the volume of tour groups, that will become much easier to do. because it will be more consolidated and condensed in terms of the schedule. So as it grows, it should get easier. But it is still the real challenge we have. We have the same challenge with our tech services staff and our logistics teams at Claudelands, for example, because they are generally paid for depending on the work that's required and when it's required, often by our customers. So we have the same challenge. We have periods where some people just don't get work for a couple of weeks, and this is the challenge with casual labour force. It's not easy, but
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Max.
Quick little question, and I'm channeling Councillor Louise here in terms of the new offering at the Gardens being the merch that you walk through on the way out the door. My assumption is that you've included that under the revenue from activities.
Yes.
What kind of feedback could you give us about how successful that offering is?
I'll look over my bag. Irene, do you want to make a comment on that? Irene, the person who handles our retail side, reports into Irene, so you might have a...
Yeah, the revenue, it's been very successful, actually, and a lot of work's going on to actually make it a place to actually go and purchase your retail, even if you don't go through the Gardens as well. And quite a lot of work is going on around developing products that have a direct link to the Gardens. So already we've got things like candles that have scents which are linked to a particular garden. So there's a lot of opportunity in that area, definitely.
Yeah.
It's actually been going really well across all three destinations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got a very good retail lead who knows retail and design and all of that.
So as we get a little bit more successful...
Louise has got her hat on, everyone.
As we get a bit more in depth with our reporting, we may well introduce a KPI which talks about the average retail sale per admission. So at the moment, for example, I can't remember the number offhand, but I know their zoo is currently around $2.50 per admission, up on what they were last year.
Right.
With their merch, so...
Yeah. Yeah. And excellent, can I say, that you have to be corralled through there to get out. So, yeah, good tactics.
If you're interested in buying any merch, I'd recommend you buy the straw hats from the Gardens.
Oh, right.
They're really good.
I have just a bucket hat from the Gardens, and I can see Louise has the cap. Thank you.
Colleagues. I'll move the motion on page 166, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll open it up for debate.
I would like to, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, yet again, our visitor destinations, the Gardens, the museum and the zoo in Te Kararoa are doing great with visitor numbers. Our visitor net destinations, particularly those three, are on my top 5 list next to my home and my garden of places to be in the city. Obviously, lots of us visited the Gardens with the recent Arts Festival and how busy that was. We went to the museum entry event late last year. And unfortunately, the sad passing of one of our giraffes, I popped up to see the team last week on that day when one of the giraffes passed away. We are so, with all of our facilities, right, but I'm talking about these ones because they're in our report. We are so well served by such passionate staff members at these destinations. What beautiful, wonderful places to work. Beautiful gardens and animals and history and heritage, and it's just really special places. And I just really want to acknowledge their passion because it shows. It shows to us. I can see it even when I'm there incognito, particularly with the Gardens. I walk every Saturday around, do a 7K trip around the Gardens and the river. They don't know who I am, and I see them out and about, and they're talking to people, and they just love what they do, and I love the fact that they love what they do. I want us to reflect for a moment, just quickly, although Councillor Wilson and myself were the only ones involved way back. But the success and the trajectory for our visitor destinations for the museum started in 2016 with the master plan, for the zoo in 2014 and for the gardens in 2014. And I acknowledge back then also Mayor Julie Hardacre, who worked with our staff and created that vision and those blueprints. So I'm so excited to have been part of that journey at the beginning, and really grateful to the team and the general managers involved to where we are and what the future's going to look like. So really great to see visitor numbers just keep growing and growing. Thank you.
Ewan, I want to bring attention to the building consenting activity part of Tiki's report. 2 years ago, just under 1,600 houses were constructed, and I predicted a 25% fall each year for 2 years. The new figure is 801, so I was out by one house. I don't need a crystal ball. There is a pipeline from initial design through to the building being completed, and the consents are just one step of that process. The report notes that homes have plateaued and might pick up towards the end of the year. My business allows me to see the start of the pipeline, and the decline will continue. Construction has a big time lag for recovery, 2 years for building developers, 5 years for land developers, and it hasn't started yet. Builders, tradies and suppliers make up 10% of the workforce, and they are going to have a hard time. Yet Council has just increased its fees and charges. We aren't helping, but we should be reducing costs and improving efficiency.
Andrew, Councillor Anna, followed by Councillor Louise.
Yeah, I just wanted to also celebrate our visitor destinations, and I guess acknowledge an event which Councillor Maria talked about before, just this past weekend, the Haka Māori cultural experience. I just wanted to highlight it because it was amazing. There was just buses rolling in, and it was a very busy day. And we were, Tainui Waka Tourism presented us, I guess, with a showcase or a possibility of what could be offered on a more regular basis down at the gardens. And it was just, yeah, I mean, I think about my American whānau and when they come over and visit, and how much they would lap that up instead of going over to Rotorua, where often people disappear to see some of our Māori culture on display. And it was amazing. And we had our Korean whānau getting into it, and people from Chile, and up on the with the kapahaka up on stage, and it was just neat. So I guess I'm just highlighting that because I think it's an exciting direction and possibility, and it was great to be there with Councillor Maria and Councillor Moko also. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Louise.
Kia ora. I just wanted to clarify, in case anyone thought it was a conspiracy, that Councillor Maxine asked a question and I just happened to have my hat. I'm actually down in Otaki at the moment, participating in their economy, and when we went to leave the house, I grabbed my cap, and actually my partner also grabbed a cap off the rack. So we have both our Hamilton Gardens and our Hamilton Zoo caps, which we'll be proudly wearing around the Kapiti Coast. But yeah, I just want to echo some of the comments made by others that, you know, our staff at our visitor destinations are really incredible. I had a flat tire at the zoo over the Gardens Arts Festival, and staff was so helpful. But also the merch that they've been procuring has been really thoughtful. I was actually telling my partner about how we're looking for a housewarming gift for a friend who used to live in Hamilton, and I was saying how they've got these beautiful pressed flowers in frames from some of the Hamilton Gardens. Just how, like, if you know someone from Hamilton and you want to get them a thoughtful gift, that's really becoming my #1 place to look for something. So yeah, just wanted to say congratulations to staff across the board for that.
Thank you. I have no one else. Colleagues, I very briefly just want to comment on, you know, the range of subjects that we've discussed today, from the geopolitical actions of Trump, who I just simply refer to as the orange because that's what he looks like, and how those economic actions with tariffs have a global effect, including all the way down to little old Hamilton, New Zealand. And then at the other, much more pleasant end of the spectrum, thinking about the wonderful visitor destinations this city has, and how, success has many parents, failure is an orphan. This has evolved over decades of hard work. I remember Councillor Angela and Councillor Ryan working hard in the past to make that a reality. I had the luck of visiting the zoo yesterday, the gardens, and I was just reminded how beautiful it was. And the person who was with me said, "Oh, wouldn't it be amazing that in the gift shop they had scented candles that would reflect the amazing smells that we experienced in the Chinese garden?" And I looked at Emily and thought, oh, that's a really interesting idea. And then to hear today that actually either we're doing it or we're about to do it just makes me smile, the fact that we have some really smart people who are thinking about this. And you really can walk in to the Chinese garden and get the smell. And then we also noticed it in one of the other gardens and thought, how cool would it be to have merchandise that we could leverage? And we're doing that, and that's really important. So that was the only comment I want to make. So thank you, Sean, and your team that are making all those decisions. Colleagues, I'll move the motion on page 166, which is to receive the report, seconded by Councillor Jeff. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Right. Sean, we welcome you back to the events sponsorship review. The report has been circulated. Ideally, we could take it as read, unless you wanted to cover some salient points.
Chair, look, I don't have anything to add other than to say that it is a simplistic renewal of the existing policy. We aren't recommending any change.
All right, wonderful. Moved by Councillor Sarah, seconded by Councillor Andrew. I have no questions. Any debate required? I'll move the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. I'll move, sorry. I was about to say we'll move the exclusion of the public. Nicholas, strategic property update. First of all, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take the open section of this report as read. Suffice to say that when this report was written, we were still concluding the MEF loan to the Hinemoa affordable housing development. I'm happy to say that that loan has now been fully approved and signed off by the Chief Executive. And those of you who have been down that end of Tristram Street recently will see that demolition has started on site. And I'm informed that construction is scheduled to commence April, May. So well underway there. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, colleagues. I'll open it up for questions. I see no questions. I will move. Seconded by Councillor Maxine. The only debate I would like to say is Hinemoa is the second project that the MEF has been able to fund. I want to actually give a shout out to my colleague, Councillor Maxine. Can I assure you, colleagues, that when it comes to these detailed documentation, there is no one who is being more eagle-eyed in checking the substance, and although sometimes it's challenging, I have to say it adds value to the process. So Maxine, thank you for that work. And my other comment I'd like to make, I'd just like to say, hey Council, this is the first in this 3-year term that we've actually had a meaningful funding initiative to address the issue of affordable housing, and I think we can celebrate that, and that's great to have that underway. And my final comment is we will not find better people than Nicholas. When you think of the range of work that Nicholas does, that he does for us, and at a high technical level that keeps us safe, that is robust, that is current and commercial, we are lucky to have you. And so I just want to say again, thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Councillor Ewan's thanks to Councillor Max for her diligence in the MEF committee and asking the questions that she does. I really appreciate that. I think this project is great to get off the ground. I guess to me too, it also highlights the challenge of actually delivering affordable housing in the city. It is a huge challenge, and I think this we have to remember this project has been enabled a lot through the Perry Foundation and the gifting of land and all of the aspects that make it viable. And that's not necessarily a reality for a whole lot of other developers in this space who are wanting to do very similar work. And I mean, access to capital ongoingly is a huge issue for our community housing providers, and I don't see it being resolved, not by government, not by anybody. So I am really concerned about how challenging it is still to build affordable housing in our city, and we know that there's been a pullback from government in terms of state housing. It's just this very empty space at the moment, it feels like. So it is great to get this off the ground. It's also good to hear that Bridge has got a potential pipeline of projects, and it would be wonderful if the MEF could do this again and again, but we know that's not a reality and unlikely to happen. However, I think the MEF in its work does demonstrate that it is possible to invest into these projects, and even though you get a slightly less return, the returns that you get in terms of enabling spaces for our communities to be able to live affordably is certainly worth that, I think. So just thank you to the MEF team and to Nicholas and for all the work, and we will remain hopeful that this isn't the only affordable housing development that we can support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the kind words that you've said about the kind of due diligence that I've given the responsibility of looking over these things. And my apologies to Nicholas from time to time, because I know that I can be a little challenging in some of those questions. So I'm really thankful that he's been able to work with me to get the answers that we've needed in this. And I wanted the trustees to know, and hear it from me personally, that I've been 100% behind this proposal. I find it the most rewarding and certainly once it's finished, a product that will be able to answer some of the affordability in housing that we have around the city, and so actually some of the sizes of the offering that they'll be making as well. You know, smaller sites, and there couldn't be a better place to situate an offering like that than right across the road from a beautiful park that we're developing, and close enough to the city where you can walk everywhere. So to the trustees, thank you for bringing this proposal to us. We've done what we can to make it as affordable and to play our part as a city as much as possible. But it's been important for us to be able to dot the I's and cross the T's through this process, so that Hamiltonians know that the city is acting responsibly as well. Kia ora, and that's it from me.
No other speakers? I'll just have a brief right of reply. I forgot to thank the ratepayer. And I just want to thank the ratepayer because ultimately, as you know, with the MEF, its goal is to make commercial returns, and commercial return projects then enables it to do occasionally the types of projects that we've done with Hinemoa, where we would have made more money if we'd invested it on the market. And so the person who forgoes that is the ratepayer. And so this is why we can't do many of those projects, and why I would remind people the only way of doing more of the projects is to do really good commercial projects at full market rates, get the revenue coming in, and then we can try to work out these. So I just wanted to say thanks to the ratepayer. I'll move. It's been seconded, has it not? Yep. Yep. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. I will move the resolution to exclude the public, seconded by Tim. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
The ayes have it. Colleagues, I'm in your hands.